Prayers.
Good morning, all. Please permit me to read a few verses of scripture taken from Proverbs 14, the New Living Translation. A peaceful heart leads to a healthy body. Jealousy is like cancer in the bones. Those who oppress the poor insult their maker, but helping the poor honor him. The wicked are crushed by disaster, but the godly have a refuge when they die. Wisdom is enshrined in an understanding heart. Wisdom is not found among fools. Godliness makes a nation great, but sin is a disgrace to any people. Let us pray. O kind, loving, gracious, and faithful Heavenly Father, indeed, as a people and in this honored assembly, Lord, we want to pause to say thank you for your goodness upon us as a nation. We're much aware, Lord, that there are many in the world, even in our region and further afield, who are now suffering from natural disaster. But we are not so this morning, so we want to say thank you for your grace and your mercy. Nothing good we have done to deserve it, but your choice of grace and mercy. And so, Lord, as our leaders, Lord, the leading political party, the government, and the opposition here assembled this morning, Lord, we ask for a fresh outpouring of your grace, your wisdom, and your enlightenment upon them, Lord, that as they deliberate, Lord, help them to understand that even in their passion, Lord, we pray that you will grant them, O Lord, humility, the strength of humility, Lord, to be willing to agree when something is right. And grant them, O God, the strength of courage, O God, to stand against what is wrong, Lord. So we ask your blessings overall on this assembly this morning, that everything will be said and done to your honor and to your glory. We thank you and we praise you because you are good and you answer us when we pray from our hearts, believing. We thank you and we praise you. In Jesus' holy and precious name, amen.
Papers to be laid on the table. Confirmation of minutes.
Members, we have minutes number 9, dated Monday,
Yes.
Monday 28th July 2025. Could we have someone moving a motion for the confirmation, please? I recognize the Honorable Deputy Premier.
Madam Speaker, if it pleases you, I write to confirm, to move a motion for the confirmation of minutes, number 9 of the 18th Parliament, dated Monday, 28th of July, 2025.
Do we have a seconder? Recognize the Honorable Minister of Agriculture.
Madam Speaker, I rise to second the motion for the confirmation of the minutes.
It has been moved and seconded that minutes number 9, dated Monday, 28th July, 2025, be confirmed. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those against, nay. The ayes have it. Minutes number 9, dated Monday, 28th July 2025, has been confirmed.
Papers to be laid on the table.
I recognize the Honorable Financial Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise in this honourable House to lay the following papers appearing under the name of the Financial Secretary. SRNO number 42 of 2025, Customs Duties and Consumption Tax, Clifford Ryan, Exemption Order. SRNO number 44 of 2025, International Banking and Trust Companies Fees, Amendment number 2, Regulations. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. I recognize the Honorable Attorney General.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to lay on the table of this Honorable House the following papers appearing under the name of the Attorney General. SRNO number 40 of 2025, National Audit Office Act 2024, Commencement Order 2025. SRNO number 41 of 2025, Child Justice Committee, Term of Office Regulations. And SRNO number 43 of 2025, Public Procurement Regulations 2025. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Reports from committees, ministerial statements.
Do we have any ministerial statements? I recognize the Honorable Minister of Build.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, members and officers of this Honorable House, and the people of Montserrat at home and abroad, I rise to provide this Honorable House with a progress report of the work of the Ministry of Buildings, Utilities, Infrastructure, Labour, Transportation, and Ecclesiastical Affairs, covering some of the work undertaken over the past months of the period 2025-2026 of the financial year, and also of this government leading this country for just about a year and a few days. Like any journey, Madam Speaker, it has not been easy. It's a getting to know you, marked by challenges, some inherited, others just life, but a joy and an honor. Wisdom, favor, and standing on his word. For whenever the staff said to me, "No money there," the Spirit said, "Money cometh. Go dig ditches, money cometh." It came, Madam Speaker, but with tight deadlines, strict transparency, fiscal accountability, which, Madam Speaker, I value. It's a small team, a young team, especially the energy team, but supported by a dependable team and partners, convicted, committed that we have a country to build and a nation to mold, and those our visitors are welcome. It requires what I have often called the one Montserrat mindset, a whole of Montserrat approach, where every citizen, organization, and partner work together to build a stronger and more resilient future, partnership, progress, prosperity, and we cannot forget respect. Our mandated ability is extensive and vital, from roads to ports, public buildings, water, energy, labor, sewage, transport, not forgetting ecclesiastical affairs. The ministry carries the weight of some of the government's most visible and high-impact responsibilities. But, Madam Speaker, we go in faith. We go knowing that our people are competent and able to deliver. This statement reports on the progress we have made under the 7 pillars, Madam Speaker, I outlined during the budget debate earlier this year. Project management and infrastructure, key delivery, key component of our responsibility. We are responsible for marine and aviation oversight, public buildings, roads, verges, guts, and fleet maintenance, energy and utilities, labor, transport, and ecclesiastical affairs. Madam Speaker, I began with our major development projects. I will begin with our major development projects that are reshaping Montserrat's landscape, strengthening our resilience, positioning our island for sustainable growth and development. The port management, Madam Speaker, port management project. Madam Speaker, our portfolio of major capital projects continue to gain momentum despite that. Critical to help building one Montserrat, Madam Speaker, is the ability to provide safe, affordable access by sea, air, and land. We must be able to move people, goods, and services in a dependable way. To this end, Madam Speaker, we continue to advance the Little Bay Port project. We are not pleased with the delay, which has frustrated us and our people, but after much discussion with our stakeholders, it was determined to continue. Madam Speaker, the contractor, Meridian, was seen as having the competence. Difficulty it would cause in securing another contractor, given the expiry date of the funds. Very few contractors would wish to undertake someone else's work, and having unfinished port, Madam Speaker, poses serious legal implications and great consequences for all people. We believe that with a robust supervision, it is possible to finish the port with this contractor. Therefore, the Port Development Project was officially remobilized on the 1st of September 2025, following the signing of the deed of amendment. A remobilization payment has been made to the contractor, and a revised construction program is now being finalized with the supervising engineer. The project remains on course, though slow, to be completed with the revised UKC funding window, that is 12 months from the date of the first remobilization payment of September 2026. Madam Speaker, this remobilization represents more than just a return of activity on site. It marks the restoration of our commitment to one of Montserrat's most transformative pieces of infrastructure. I wish to thank the dedicated technical teams, the project management unit, and our partners at the Ministry of Finance, Economic Management, Her Excellency the Governors and staff, and Madam Speaker, FCDO, as well, Madam Speaker, the Honorable Premier, with his experience, Madam Speaker, and his expertise, has helped us, Madam Speaker, to ride the waves. We have put in place, Madam Speaker, a robust governance structure. This government has not taken a hands-off approach. Rather, we are involved every step of the way. What then have we done differently? We have strengthened the team. We have onboarded a new project coordinator, Mr. Franco De Rosa. He possesses over 25 years of project management experience, 10 years in delivering marine projects, both onshore and offshore, including successful delivery of 3 ports. We have retained our former coordinator as engineer, Madam Speaker. Our fiscal management, we operate on an open book basis. Funds claimed and spent must directly relate to the project. Direct payments by CDB for critical equipment, joint account with the contractor and government of Montserrat. We also require accountability from Stantec in holding Meridian to a credible work plan to deliver by September 2026. There is added accountability to Cabinet, to the Strategic Board, to the steering committee made up of cabinet members, FCDO officials, and the technical officers must report. I want to reiterate, this is not a hands-off approach, but a team effort. We are meeting regularly, escalating any issues that arise for a solution. I must register my thanks, Madam Speaker, to CDB for moving this forward and working together as a team. Madam Speaker, as we escalate our concerns to Cabinet, we are also supported by a legal team thanks to the FCDO. Performance insurance bond is also in place. We are keeping our hands on the pulse. Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Build has oversight for both the airport and the seaport, shared with the Governor, who is responsible for security. Safe, affordable, reliable access by sea and air, land, is undergirded by legislative compliance, critical to the operation, Madam Speaker, of those main infrastructure. We must comply with both local and international rules. To this end, therefore, Madam Speaker, significant headway has been made in the reform of the Montserrat maritime legislation. This process has been long in preparation, but we are now at the stage of completion. We have a full legislative review which was undertaken with regional marine consultants, a comprehensive suite of 11 merchant shipping regulations, which is now finalized for implementation. The regulations form a broader legislative overhaul that will modernize Montserrat's maritime administration, bring our island into full alignment with regional and international standards. The intent, Madam Speaker, is clear and far-reaching. We are ready to do work with persons, businesses, Madam Speaker, and agencies which are both regional and international. This framework will enable the full implementation of the Port Authority Act, establish a strong, modern regulatory environment for shipping and port operations, strengthen flag, port, and coastal state control functions, ensure compliance with IMO instruments extended to Montserrat through the United Kingdom. Safety, Madam Speaker, is improved, security, environmental protection across maritime domain, and it lays the foundation for new institutional arrangements to manage enforcement, licensing, and vessel registration. Madam Speaker, we are making progress, a decisive step toward a modern maritime administration, one capable of regulating effectively, promoting maritime safety, and positioning Montserrat as a responsible partner within the wider Caribbean and international maritime network. That's what we speak about, five-star premium destination. Montserrat is on the move, moving with this government to support this, Madam Speaker. The planes are in the sky, and you'll hear from our Honorable Premier because he's responsible for access. But we are supporting this effort. At the John A. Osborne Airport, the control tower upgrade is nearing completion. Elevator installation commenced 20th of October 25, and final electrical connections are now being completed. Levels 1 and 2 near completion. Once finished, this facility will significantly improve safety, reliability, and the working conditions the Governor's office use the term MAG for Manchester Air Group going forward, has inspected and focused on the infrastructure, safety systems, and procedural requirements necessary to support extended evening operations, especially Medivac. This was an important exercise, Madam Speaker, as it allows Montserrat to plan responsibly for the potential expansion of these flights. We are supported, Madam Speaker, with a roadmap which has been developed and a committee formed to advance this. We continue, Madam been a bone of contention, and Bill will now need to advance this as the governor will remain the position that was taken previously. Madam Speaker, aviation safety is an ongoing responsibility, and so, Madam Speaker, we continue to work and collaborate with our partners. Our security and administrative staff, they're not forgotten. We have also put forward a new spend submission to provide accommodation. They have suffered too long in the poor working conditions some Calypsonians would have said left to dead. Enormous thanks to the management and staff at the Port Authority, cleaners, security, airport control towers, stevedores, administrative, you name it, we say thank you. I say thank you. The government of Montserrat says thank you. Buildings, road, and fleet maintenance. Madam Speaker, the maintenance and improvement of our roads and public buildings remain at the heart of BILTI's work. This is the area where the people of Montserrat must most readily see and feel the results of our government's investment. Madam Speaker, a five-star premium destination requires that our buildings are safe, enhancing health and well-being of users, accessible, climate resilient, and the aesthetics pleasing to the eye. The Public Works Department continues, therefore, to deliver under the Government Infrastructure Priority Agenda 2023 to 2026, which had an allocation of $3.688 million EC dollars, $2.418 million for building maintenance, and $1.27 million for roads. Our focus this year has been on essential upgrades in health, education, justice, security infrastructure, alongside surfacing, where permitted, by the hot mix, a very Madam Speaker, unreliable friend of mine, and the strengthening of our fleet maintenance capacity. Madam Speaker, I am pleased to report that several key building projects have now been completed. Braids Primary School, Blocks A and B, St. John's Clinic, the Dental Unit, Salem Police Station, Braids Fire Station, the Court and Registry Building, the installation of hurricane shutters at critical facilities, including the Built Headquarters, the Mali Complex, MCRS, Customs, Court Registry, and the Office of the Premier. These projects address long-standing vulnerabilities in critical public infrastructure, enhance safety and security, and strengthen the delivery of public service across multiple sectors. The A1 project funded under CPREG has now been successfully closed. This project delivered phased resurfacing and geometric upgrades along the main A01 corridor and strategic C roads such as Mongo Hill and Fritz, significantly improving drivability, safety, and drainage along some of Montserrat's most busiest route. The A1 road, Madam Speaker, also consisted of procuring a new asphalt plant, the hot mix plant, under CPREG, complementing our ongoing maintenance program. Enhancement works were carried out, Madam Speaker, and we will continue to focus on our guts, our rivers. Our guts, our rivers, because of, especially with increased risk to properties. We work with our communities and we encourage homeowners to also secure protection for themselves. The team is small, but we endeavor to visit. Please be patient with us as we seek to assist where we can. In recent times, Madam Speaker, I am pleased to say that even with the heavy rains, the guts, Madam Speaker, when I look at some of them as I'm driving by, that there was no garbage. And I want to salute the people of Montserrat who are ensuring that the garbage is delivered where it should be, in the garbage bins. And I encourage you to keep walking with your bag and a bucket in your vehicle so that we do not dispose of garbage through our vehicle windows. Do not litter. We preserve, we protect, and we prosper. We are working hand in hand, Madam Speaker, with the Tourism Authority. Montserrat is still considered to be one of the cleanest countries around, and cleanliness, I did not forget growing up, is next to godliness. Let us please preserve, protect, in order to prosper. And so, Madam Speaker, our verge maintenance and draining cleaning were also undertaken on the adjoining B and C roads. Additional intervention, road patching when able, but greatly delayed, Madam Speaker. Collectively, these improvements were meant to significantly enhance road safety and drivability. Beautification, reduce wear and tear on the roads, while mitigating the risk of erosion and flooding is our priority. After 30 years, Madam Speaker, we must make a difference. I must say, Madam Speaker, we also put people to work. Madam Speaker, we undertook our verge cleaning program, which was allocated out to private sector. We are embarking on that again, and some 18 contracts are available. Persons have already bid, and those, Madam Speaker, are being reviewed. With our advancement with the road works, Madam Speaker, we are also not just sitting around waiting on this hot mix. We have encountered just too many operational challenges, and therefore we have taken an approach where we have secured assistance from a specialist which will lead targeted training sessions for the plant's operations and maintenance teams, including our mechanics and electricians, to reinforce technical capacity. This initiative is designed to improve early fault detection, enhance troubleshooting skills, promote best practice in routine maintenance, and ultimately reduce downtime while extending the lifespan of the plant. We thank you, our people, and the public for your patience. I also want to thank, which I will do later, those persons who work on our verges, the directors and the supervisors. This project, Madam Speaker, what does it involve? It involves spring rehabilitation, rebuilding resilience in water security, enhancing our water storage and capacity, distribution system upgrade, wastewater treatment plant at Margarita Bay. Madam Speaker, I would say that under that, we intend, Madam Speaker, to strengthen and transform the island's water and wastewater systems. Our Ferguson Springs work have been completed, and to adopt the phrase from the Tourist Bureau, from the Tourist Authority, we are preserving, we are protecting, so that we can prosper. Those springs, Madam Speaker, have been now housed, allowing easy access and our water safety, while there's a fence, Madam Speaker, to protect the entire compound. Hope Spring is the next milestone, more difficult terrain, I must say, especially with the rainfall, but we are progressing. A new road cut, making easier access. We are on our way, Madam Speaker, with our storage capacity. We will be having the building of the foundation to receive the reservoirs, and the suppliers will be on island to ensure that that is done. Our distribution work upgrade started in Palm Loop area. This will continue. Madam Speaker, we're replacing those blue pipes that you see around. They have not lived up to the expectations, I'm told, because they have been exposed. So we're now going underground, and we expected to get 50 years plus service from these new pipes, reducing water losses, as well as enhance our network across the island. I sincerely apologize to the residents of Palm Loop, the principal, teachers, students, parents, and road users, both motorists and pedestrians, for the discomfort and inconvenience caused by the work undertaken. Our wastewater treatment plant at Margarita Bay is also on the way. The drawings are completed, and the consultants at Isles Group has completed the design, will supervise the works for future water facilities at Margarita Bay. Together, these projects enhance Montserrat's ability to deliver clean, reliable, and sustainable utility services to every household and business while creating jobs. My refrain has been, everyone must live, share the pie. As Honorable Dwayne Hickson have said, every mouth must be fed. Madam Speaker, we also wish to confirm that the CPREC-funded Priority Sewage Project at Drummond's, Davy Hill and Lookout have been integrated to MUL's Solar Energy Program, and future implementation will proceed under MUL's own investment planning. This initiative, from solar energy to water infrastructure, are not just projects on paper. They represent tangible progress toward a greener, more self-reliant Montserrat. They speak, Madam Speaker, of the capability, the capacity, and the competence of our people to deliver. Madam Speaker, we could not do it without the MUL team. We could not do it without the linesmen and our power team who come out in all sorts of weather and conditions to ensure that we have electricity. I salute them, Madam Speaker, on behalf of the people of Montserrat and the government of Montserrat. Labor, transport, and ecclesiastical affairs. Turning to labor. Labor, we register thanks to Mr. Philip Mulcair, who has retired. I thank him for his hard work, his vision to build our skill reservoir. I have worked with him over the years, even before, Madam Speaker, joining the ministry, and he has delivered training programs in plumbing as well as working with the previous commissioner, Madam Speaker, to deliver professional development program. It is important, Madam Speaker, that professionalism in the workplace is a priority. We welcome Mrs. Marcella Frith, our acting Labour Commissioner. The ministry continues introducing, Madam Speaker, with national minimum wage. Extensive consultation, technical analysis have been undertaken, and, Madam Speaker, drawing on the cost of living data from the Statistics Department and the consensus views of the Labour Advisory Board. The goal remains to ensure that the wage policy supports decent work, fairness, and competitiveness within our national economy. Madam Speaker, I know that our people are eager for its implementation, and I am committed to doing just that. But we were asked, Madam Speaker, to hold, Madam Speaker, in order to allow the enhanced poverty study to come in, as well as the household budget survey. But in spite of this, Madam Speaker, I have given instructions to advance the cabinet paper since, Madam Speaker, that was delayed. The Labour Department during this period has continued to strengthen its policy and service delivery functions. Labour inspections, dispute resolution, public education will remain steady alongside data collection on work permit trends and employer demands. This evidence-based approach ensures that our labour programs and training initiatives, especially with the HIGH program, respond directly to real workforce needs. Our work permit. This government has committed itself to building a one Montserrat. To this end, it was decided that persons living in Montserrat upwards of 3 years will not be required to apply for a work permit. Madam Speaker, we have also advanced that amendments to the Labour Code, particularly the section dealing with work permits. These revisions aim to streamline the processes, improve compliance, and better align with the government's population policy, emerging labour market needs. The intent is to create a fairer, more transparent framework, attract the skills required to drive national development while safeguarding opportunities for Montserratians and strengthening overall governance of the labor market. We are determined, Madam Speaker, to make those who live among us feel welcome, to become a part of us, united, one Montserrat, Madam Speaker. We have been working as well with building our register in keeping up with the Montserrat Labor Code. We have held meetings with ILO, FCDO, and other BOTCs to determine the way forward on extending the relevant ILO and other work-related conventions to Montserrat and the other BOTCs. Transport. With respect to transport, Madam Speaker, I am pleased to report that Cabinet has approved the introduction of the early guilty plea system for selected traffic offences. This reform allows individuals to settle specific offences by paying a penalty charge notice without appearing in court. It supports the regulations, the Road Traffic Special Provision, Penalty Charge Notice Regulation 2025, and the Road Traffic Special Provisions Amendment of Schedules Regulation 2025. These have been approved and will come into effect shortly. It's a practical, efficient, and progressive measure, Madam Speaker, and I can speak, Madam Speaker, from experience. When the court is filled, Madam Speaker, with motor and traffic cases that has happened, it creates backlog. This saves valuable court time, improves compliance, and allows enforcement to focus resources on higher risk road violation. It also takes into account, Madam Speaker, that we are serious about allowing people to get to work and to do what they need to do in order to be productive and efficient. The Transport Board, Madam Speaker, remains active in reviewing applications, advising on vehicle safety standards, and ensuring compliance with established regulations. The mechanism safeguards both public safety and the integrity of our transport system. We must remind persons, especially those visiting for Christmas and St. Patrick's, to procure their driver's license online, reducing delays. I am not at all pleased with the accommodation of the public, especially when it is crowded, extremely hot, and raining, and we're discussing what amenities we can install to ease this. Madam Speaker, on the ecclesiastical affairs, the ministry continues to support partnerships with faith-based organizations, recognizing their vital role in national life and community well-being. This year, the ministry supported the National Day of Prayer held in July. We worked, Madam Speaker, with the Christian Council, bringing together churches across denominations in unity, reflection, and gratitude, and our people. No one was excluded. Madam Speaker, we had no budget allocated, but we have put forward a new spend for ecclesiastical affairs. We will continue to engage with church leaders and other spiritual leaders on matters of economic, social development, youth development, social outreach, care for the vulnerable, as we seek to strengthen the moral and social fabric of our nation. Empowering the nation, the whole man, we are concerned wish. Madam Speaker, we wish above all things that our people prosper, be in good health as their soul prospers. We believe in the abundant life, and we want all Montserratians and those living among us to prosper, not this hand-to-mouth business. It cannot work. During this period, Madam Speaker, we have also piloted the Seventh-day Adventist Church Amendment Bill to the Legislative Assembly. This legislative milestone enables the Church to advance its mission and continue serving the people of Montserrat with faith and purpose. I take this opportunity to congratulate the Seventh-day Adventist Church as they celebrate 115 years of Adventism, saving souls, educating generations, serving humanity, especially the vulnerable, transforming lives for the kingdom. In conclusion, Madam Speaker, the past year has been marked by renewed energy, determined execution, and a clear sense of purpose. The Ministry of Build, working hand in hand with our partners across government, the private sector and the community, has made measurable progress over every area. And so I want to thank, Madam Speaker, all who have contributed. Madam Speaker, whether they were working on the hot mix plant, remobilizing the port project, from the landmark advancement in energy and utilities, modernization for maritime laws, progress with purpose. These are not isolated achievements. They're the building blocks of a more resilient, modern, and inclusive Montserrat, achievement that positively impact the lives of our people, whether they be students, teachers, visitors, public servants, private sectors, building resilience and creating employment. Madam Speaker, the rest of the team, Madam Speaker, because we work with all of the ministries, are going also to advance what they have done to make, Madam Speaker, this place a 5-star premium destination where people want to live, work, Madam Speaker, study, just visit and have fun or enjoyment. So thank you to the entire team. Thank you to MUL, the Port Authority, all our gangs, our cleaners, our administrative teams, our managers, our PS, our technical officers, engineers, site supervisors, the many contractors that work with us to make, Madam Speaker, our achievements possible. You share our collective vision every day. Their commitment, resilience, and creativity will continue to drive progress. We will celebrate not only today, Madam Speaker, but going forward. The work continues, guided by our vision of one Montserrat, green, connected, and thriving, a 5-star premium destination. The one Montserrat mindset calls for unity. It calls for each of us to play our part. It requires all hands on board. Thus, I want to compliment, Madam Speaker, all of the ministers, our parliamentary secretaries, Madam Speaker, our opposition, Madam Speaker, who hold us accountable, Her Excellency and the staff, our Deputy Governor and staff, and the entire civil service. No one, Madam Speaker, FS, the Honorable FS and his team, the Commissioner of Police, his rank and file, Chief Immigration Department. Wow, Madam Speaker, I was so impressed when I visited the hospital, the airport, Madam Speaker, not the hospital, I haven't gone for a while. The new uniforms of our immigration officers, they have the professionalism, the warmth to balance this, ensuring, Madam Speaker, that we move forward. Our air operators and our staff, we work together to improve customer experience and reliance. I want to say special thanks to Mr. Francis, who created that garden at the front of the airport, an initiative to keep the airport clean. Madam Speaker, I am not at all happy with those goats, and so, Madam Speaker, we are going to be advancing that discussion to bring that under control. Again, our private sector contractors, you have stayed the course. Our private employees, you've rallied with us. You all have suffered losses. Even it was difficult, you stood with us. You continue to provide invaluable service and keep this country moving, keep this country growing to soar. Let us unite and build one Montserrat, a 5-star premium destination, green, connected, and thriving. Madam Speaker, we must work together. As I ask God to bless our island, I also want to remember, Madam Speaker, Jamaica and all those who have been affected by Melissa. And Madam Speaker, we also keep in our prayers Venezuela, Trinidad and Guyana, CARICOM, the other CARICOM islands, and the OECS who have worked with us thus far. And my colleagues will tell you, Madam Speaker, of the contribution that they have been making to this island. God bless you, Madam Speaker. God bless us all. May peace, prosperity, and divine protection continue to be with us. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity to address this honorable House.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. And if I was allowed to comment on presentations, I would have said a true reflection of an energy minister.
Madam Speaker, if I was allowed, I would say thank you, Madam Speaker. I hope I can come back. No, I endeavor to come back here, Madam Speaker, because I do not want you to reprimand me, but to be proud of me, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, your Legislative Assembly as well. We must thank you and your staff for their support that they've given us through the months. Thank you so very much again
You're
for
most
allowing me
welcome.
to address.
I recognize the Honorable Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, honorable colleagues, to include the honorable opposition, and most importantly, the people of Montserrat, good morning. It is with a profound sense of pride and gratitude that I rise today to present this ministerial statement on the milestone achievements of the Ministry of Agriculture, Lands, Housing, Environment, Youth Affairs, and Sports for the period of November 2024 to October 2025. Madam Speaker, the ministry's work is guided by the government's policy agenda, which prioritizes capacity, capability, and resilient infrastructure built and maintained, food security, improved nutrition, and sustainable agriculture, sustainable economic growth and productive employment for all, access for all to adequate, safe, and affordable housing and basic services, effective and efficient government services, Montserrat's natural environment conserved and used sustainably. Madam Speaker, our ministry plays a central role in ensuring that Montserrat's development is both sustainable and inclusive, securing the foundations of food security, safe housing, youth empowerment, environmental stewardship, and community well-being. Madam Speaker, this has been a year of renewal, progress, and resilience, a year in which we deepened our legislative framework, strengthened our national capacity, and advanced our shared vision of prosperous, sustainable, and inclusive Montserrat. Madam Speaker, I will present this ministerial statement under 6 headings. First, policy milestones. Second, strategic and programmatic milestones. Third, staffing and capacity milestones. Fourth, regional project implementation highlights. Fifth, regional and international engagements. And sixth, stakeholder training and engagement activities. Madam Speaker, before I start, it would be very irremissible of me to not thank my permanent secretary, Ms. Daphne Castle, and the whole team at the ministry for the hard work and dedication they have put into the ministry over the past year. Madam Speaker, usually at this time, I would mention each department and director by name, thanking them, but this is already a very lengthy address, and I'm sure you'll see the fruits of their labor and the team's labor and accolades as I progress with this ministerial statement. Madam Speaker, however, I must say thank you to the staff for the respect they have given me. I remember even when one senior personnel mentioned to me that my pace was a bit fast, Madam Speaker, I must say that they all rose to the challenge, and together, Madam Speaker, we delivered. Policy milestones. Madam Speaker, our work this past year has been grounded in sound policy reform and forward-thinking legislation. We began by reviewing the schedule to the Plant Protection Act, allowing for the controlled entry of citrus fruits. This was a very welcome move by the public who had long desired the inclusion of citrus fruits to their diet. Containers came in, Madam Speaker, and sold out almost immediately due to the fact that citrus had been missing off our shelves, probably since the eruption of the volcano. The Honorable Dr. Buffon also welcomed this idea, as citrus is known as nature's source of vitamin C. The Honorable Doctor, in her professional experience, saw many cases of disease that could have been caused by vitamin C deficiencies, and therefore she was most happy that there would be a healthy, natural source to complement the dietary needs of our people. Madam Speaker, we also renewed the Zone C initiatives for the revitalization and redevelopment of communities such as Cork Hill, Foxes Bay, Delvins, Weekses, and Richmond Hill. The Cabinet paper was submitted to renew SRNOs with respect to exemptions and reductions in stamp duty, registration fees, and physical planning fees. Madam Speaker, I use the word renewed specifically to highlight that these initiatives are being continued from previous governments. However, where I think that most governments have failed is their public relations and public education. Conversely, we as the United Alliance are doing a much better job at this, with ministries such as the Ministry of Agriculture leading the charge to direct public engagements like ministerial town hall meetings and even frequenting the What's on Your Mind program. Madam Speaker, just to make the public aware, the Land Registry will soon lead a public awareness campaign to ensure that our citizens understand how to fully benefit from these incentives. Madam Speaker, in July, a paper was submitted to Cabinet to approve exemptions for citizens of St. Vincent and the Grenadines from the landholding license requirements, reflecting our commitment to regional reciprocity and the Caribbean unity. Madam Speaker, St. Vincent and the Grenadines has similar laws on their books that allow Montserratians to own land without an alien landholding license, and therefore, through these initiatives, we are also making it easier for our Caribbean brothers and sisters to do the same here in Montserrat. Furthermore, Madam Speaker, any other OECS or CARICOM territory that has reciprocal legislation allowing Montserratians to own land in their country will be treated in the same way going forward. The Land Registry Department is also being proactive with this and seeking out those reciprocal legislations. Madam Speaker, in April 2025, our ministry resolved the issue of the Electrical License Authority Board's composition, successfully addressing the expiry of private sector members with the Cabinet-approved appointments to the Electrical License Authority for a 2-year term. This ensures that the board is fully constituted and can legally conduct its regulatory functions. Further, we have advanced amendments to the Electrical Installations Act with proposed new provisions to govern solar, wind, and geothermal energy systems, a crucial step towards embracing renewable energy and sustainable development. Madam Speaker, we are also revisiting the draft climate change policy and action plan with the view towards submission to Cabinet for consideration. The department is also in the process of assessing the extent at which activities as listed in the action plan are being implemented across the Government of Montserrat ministries and departments. This will create a better understanding of the nature of implementation, as well as allay fears due to the cost of implementation of the plan. Madam Speaker, in housing, the ministry has been working very hard. I am pleased to say that due to the hard work of the housing team, that the terms of reference for the National Housing Policy and Strategy Consultancy have been successfully developed. This strategic initiative aims to produce a comprehensive policy aligned with Montserrat's legislative framework, supporting affordable housing in both the public and private sectors. The policy will include an assessment of current and future housing needs and is intended to complement the new Sustainable Development Plan. Notably, the initiative has been shortlisted under the new spends for the 2026-2027 budget cycle, reflecting its national importance. Madam Speaker, while on the topic of housing, before coming into government, I understood that the living conditions of some of our people were bad. But I honestly could not imagine the conditions I would meet under which some of our elderly and vulnerable persons live. Madam Speaker, I have personally made it my duty to conduct site visits, taking the team, as well as our able Press Secretary Genzil, with me to help assess what we see in efforts to help. Madam Speaker, coming into the ministry, I was told that we needed an estimate of $9.7 million to satisfy our housing repair needs in Montserrat. I do, however, know that government of Montserrat does not have an infinite source of finance. So therefore, Madam Speaker, we saw it as prudent to have a more equitable allocation criteria for our various housing programs. I am pleased to say that the revision of the allocation criteria for various housing programs has been drafted and is soon ready for submission to Cabinet. Frankly speaking, Madam Speaker, under these new allocation criteria, persons who are first-time homeowners and the most vulnerable, especially the elderly, will be prioritized. Madam Speaker, working with the Department of Housing, we have been trying our very best to help vulnerable persons, especially those retired, those who are incapacitated due to some disability or other ailment, and making sure that our citizens, despite conditions, can live in decent housing. Madam Speaker, I have personally requested that when our field officers go out and they meet these dire situations, that they take video recordings of them. I appeal to the public to allow them to do so. Not to embarrass anyone, Madam Speaker, but to show the FCDO and our UK counterparts just how dire these situations are for some Montserratians. Madam Speaker, it is my belief that after the volcanic crisis, a proper assessment of our people needed to be done. Why I say this, Madam Speaker, is because I believe we have a very unique situation on our hands where Montserratians who were previously successful would have built their own homes in the past, lost everything, and had to start life all over again, especially at not so youthful ages. What we see is a trend where persons now start new mortgages at a very late stage in life, work until retirement, and then collect a gratuity that then must be paid in full to their mortgage at retirement to even qualify for these housing loans. Madam Speaker, this is in no part their fault, because some of these very same people would have already been close to or completed those financial obligations in the past, but were reset by the volcanic situation. In short, Madam Speaker, there is a generation of our people that suffered such great loss that by themselves they could never recover with the limited time that we are offered on this earth. And therefore, we need to come to this realization and appeal to housing solutions that help alleviate this financial burden. Madam Speaker, I can go on further, but we at the ministry are actively pursuing and brainstorming different solutions to help with this situation. In this regard, I do hope that the FCDO will support our new spend acts for social housing programs going forward, as housing is a pivotal need in breaking the economic slump that we found ourselves in over the past 30 years. Madam Speaker, when I get to the topic of programmatic milestones, I will highlight further how the Ministry of Agriculture has helped persons so far. Madam Speaker, while we are still on the policy milestones, I am pleased to announce that in the area of sports and youth development, we finalized discussions on the draft Montserrat National Sports and Recreation Policy, which has now been handed over to the Policy Division of Cabinet Secretariat for its final circulation to all ministries, and thanks to the Honourable Leader of the Opposition, will also be reviewed by the Opposition before its final presentation and recommendation to Cabinet to be implemented as a national policy. The National Sports Policy will be used to guide and develop sports and physical well-being of all, with a goal of structuring athletic and economic development centered around sports and sports tourism. Madam Speaker, to also add to the sports development, we have designed a draft sports calendar to guide budgeting for event planning and athletic development. This calendar will include both local and overseas events, as we realize the need for our athletes to have continuous engagement, not just locally, but competitively within our region and the wider world. As an example, Madam Speaker, I have made a connection with my sports minister counterpart in Antigua, who has pledged that he would help Montserrat in any way possible. Also, and I will thank Her Excellency, the Governor, Harriet Crosshair, as Montserrat is seeking to engage in sports relationships outside the region. Madam Speaker, using the Governor's Network, we have now made it very possible for Montserrat to have sporting relations with India. Montserrat's football team has been officially invited to play against an Indian under-21 football team in India at a date to be determined. I am also hoping that through similar connections, we will be able to tap into other countries like Ireland, etc., for other sports such as cricket and other relations, to even include festivities such as St. Patrick's. Madam Speaker, these are just examples of how this government will leverage its diplomatic relations for the development of Montserrat. While on the topic of youth, I would like to say that a new program called the Apprenticeship Program TAP was approved by Cabinet and now stands ready for implementation. TAP is a direct investment in our youth and our future workforce. TAP will serve as a postgraduate program after the HYPE program. I would like to give special thanks to Ms. Ann Thomas and Ms. Helena Dorset, because this program specifically targets the skills gaps we see in the economy and looks to get persons certified in these various fields. Details will be released later, but as an example, we are looking into carpentry, electrician, HVAC, which is air conditioning, to not only move our HYPE youth into employment, but also self-employment after gaining the necessary skills to enter the workforce and/or the business realm. Madam Speaker, we must focus not only on creating employees, but also on giving persons the skills needed to be employers and entrepreneurs of the future. We need to build the economy, and empowering our youth will be key to Montserrat's growth and sustainability. I must say here that we cannot speak about rebuilding our island without significant investment into the persons who will be the future of this country. And Madam Speaker, that is our youth. Strategic and programmatic milestones. Madam Speaker, turning vision into action requires strong implementation. So I will now give you a run-through of some of our programmatic milestones. Effective October 1st, 2025, terms and conditions for rental of commercial spaces at the Little Bay Market Complex were incorporated into below market rate lease agreements for 9 local businesses, standardizing tenancy and promoting small business stability. This is in an effort to drive commercial activity in this area and to hopefully make it more appealing to our farmers and persons selling agricultural produce to use a central location for the retail of local produce. Madam Speaker, instead of taking a heavy-handed approach to the use of the market, we are seeking to substantially increase commercial activity in the area so that it naturally becomes appealing for retail. Moving on, Madam Speaker, our survey department successfully installed and calibrated the GNSS equipment, integrating Montserrat into the OECS geodetic network, enhancing mapping precision and strengthening our regional data infrastructure. This project also included technical training and capacity development initiatives aimed at improving survey accuracy and enhancing departmental efficiency. As a result, this initiative will significantly strengthen regional geospatial data consistency and support advanced cross-island mapping and planning efforts. Madam Speaker, in 2 High Court rulings, the Crown successfully defended its claim to lands formed through volcanic activity and upheld the Registrar of Lands' authority to deny prescriptive claims in the case of unclaimed estates. These outcomes will enable government to acquire new lands for public development and housing. Madam Speaker, you will see now why the ministry has embarked on a new housing strategy and soon to embark on the update of a new physical development plan to guide these developments. Madam Speaker, moving on to agriculture. Agriculture has seen some bold new improvements. The ministry is transitioning into a data-backed ministry where the views and inputs of our key stakeholders, namely the farmers, are taken directly into the policy decisions. At this point, I would like to say that the Cabinet has asked me to commend the work of the team, or the work that the team has put in so far, and thinks that the structure now in place at the ministry can serve as a good template for all other ministries and departments where policy is heavily guided and supported by data. Madam Speaker, to further support this, heavy stakeholder engagement has seen the launch of the Agricultural Assessment, a survey that was created in collaboration with notable persons such as Mr. Claude Brown of the Farmers Association and former Permanent Secretary of Montserrat, Mr. Frankie Michael, now working at the regional institution, CARICAD. This survey was done with a commendable 123 initial respondents. The survey has already begun to serve as the cornerstone for policy and budgetary decisions in the Department of Agriculture, for example, guiding the injection of an extra $1 million from the ECCB under the Agricultural Development Program. Out of the assessment, the funds will now be used to replace obsolete abattoir equipment, procure a new flake ice machine for our fishermen, provide critical inputs and support to our local farmers and fishers, strengthening agriculture infrastructure and productivity across the sector. Out of the assessment, we have also created a new land clearing project, which, although just started, Madam Speaker, has already cleared over 7 acres of farmland for our farmers, with other requests in the ministry currently pending. The assessment also shows that our farmers are requesting training and educational programs, such as those in pest management and disease control, and the Department of Agriculture is committed to delivering such programs in the new year. Madam Speaker, the assessment also showed that there was a critical need for access to financing. So through the Ministry of Finance, a further $1 million will be injected into a local financing institution for the commencement of an agricultural loans program, hopefully to be finalized this month. This program will give access to financing for critical equipment, such as boat engines for our fishermen and equipment for agro-processing for the persons who want to use agricultural produce to create value-added products. This is just to name a few from the requests we are already seeing for the program. Madam Speaker, following the agricultural assessment, the ministry has now embarked on a collaboration with CARICAD, and the Department of Agriculture has commenced work on the development of a new 3-year data-supported sector strategy, now formally titled the Agriculture Transformation Strategy. Madam Speaker, this marks a significant step towards modernizing and enhancing the strategic direction and effectiveness of the department's operations. Madam Speaker, other notable achievements in the ministry also include regularization of leases in the Little Bay area and the relocation of vendors at Cars Bay, where we executed the cabinet decision to relocate vendors to facilitate essential roadworks. These milestones demonstrate effective interministerial coordination and resolve long-standing issues of unauthorized occupation of Crown lands. Madam Speaker, ongoing sand mining regulations, where we maintain oversight of the sector by processing numerous weekend sand mining applications and continue to advance the development of an operational plan for the operationalization of Fort Gott. We currently await approval from the NDPRAC committee to further this initiative. Madam Speaker, there has also been consistent processing of development applications to include approvals for subdivision plans and dwelling houses. Although this is a general ministry function, the milestone here is that we realize sometimes these processes take way too long and hinder or slow development on island. The physical planning team is therefore currently progressing possible amendments to the Act that will increase the efficiency in progressing applications, especially of simple structures and small dwellings. Also, through initiatives like the acquisition of a high-precision drone and a large format scanner, we are digitizing land and planning operations, embracing technology to further improve efficiency. Madam Speaker, the ministry is also engaged in consultation and review of the National Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan, NBSAP, for Montserrat. This initiative was funded by the Organization of the Eastern Caribbean States, and initial consultations for the NBSAP were done through stakeholder workshops on Montserrat. The NBSAP is aimed at ensuring the long-term health of ecosystems and sustainable use of natural resources. To add to this, there is also consultation and review of the UK Overseas Territory Biodiversity Strategy. This biodiversity strategy was compiled through an on-island consultation by the Joint Nature Conservation Committee. Madam Speaker, Under this government, sports like cricket have been revitalized after years of being on a hiatus, to the point that Montserrat even had its own Leeward Islands cricket team competing. And to further reiterate this government's commitment to sports, the Small Capital Asset Fund SCAF applications were approved to the amount of $170,000, and this includes a roller for the cricket pitch. The tender process for this has already begun, and this should alleviate the issue of not having prepared pitches for our very able cricket team. I, for one, Madam Speaker, am very proud of how they played during the Leeward Islands tournament. Madam Speaker, as promised, I will elaborate on the various housing programs in the ministry. Housing is a topic not just for me. It's a major important topic, not just for me, but for many Montserratians. My open day on Friday is usually filled with various housing requests. And because of our very efficient team, we have been able to help quite a number of persons despite budget, and we will make representation to give Montserrat situation to the FCDO. Madam Speaker, 3 housing and land allocation meetings were held during the one-year period. 76 applications were processed, and 50 households approved for housing assistance under the various housing programs. Funds were distributed under the Financial Assistance Program, the Home Finishing Program, Materials Grants Program, and Home Improvement Grant Program. For public knowledge and awareness, I will give a brief explanation of the programs, as well as the number of persons aided to date under each program. The Financial Assistance Program. This was designed to increase access to home ownership for qualified low to middle income households through public-private partnership investment strategies. To date, 6 grants of $40,000 were issued to households to either construct or acquire a home at a total of $240,000. The grants were paid directly to the financial institutions, providing the requisite security to secure home mortgages. The beneficiaries assisted were persons between the ages of 22 and 46, 4 being males, 2 being females. In terms of direct requests, this has been the most popular program, and as such, a new spend was created and shortlisted by the Ministry of Finance to be included in the next budget, since the money we use for the program currently came from EU funding, which was reassigned. The Home Improvement Grant Program. This is to assist vulnerable persons living without adequate kitchen and bathroom amenities and homes requiring minor repairs that can be improved to the issuance of home improvement grants to bring them to a decent standard. The assistance also improves mitigation against natural disasters and reduces the likelihood of health and safety risk while enhancing the quality of life for the vulnerable. 15 grants at $10,000 were issued for a total of $150,000. Beneficiaries included 9 males and 6 females between the ages of 37 and 82 years. Home Finishing Grants Program. This offers some relief to households that are unable to bring their homes to a stage of practical completion. These homes must be at the finishing stage. That is all that is required for the dwelling to be enclosed with doors and windows, the installation of bathroom and kitchen facilities, the painting of walls, the completion of electrical works, and tiling. 1 grant to 1 female household benefited under this project to date, with a grant of $25,000. Materials Grant Project. This provides a standard conditional grant of $40,000 for the purpose of constructing new build home or to complete those stuck in the early stages of construction. Households should be able to provide the sweat equity and skills base required to construct a dwelling, but lack the finances to procure all the necessary materials. The applicant can also benefit if they are experiencing overcrowding and are a first-time recipient of government housing assistance. A single male household benefited from this incentive. Rental accommodation. 7 warden support units were awarded to persons 60 years and above. 10 approvals for vacant rented accommodation, and to date, 3 households were allocated a unit, with 7 still currently pending availability. To continue housing, Madam Speaker, under the Montserrat Housing and Land Development Authority, we'll talk about the continuation and completion of the corrective maintenance to government of Montserrat Social Housing. At the Montserrat Land Development Authority, we undertook corrective maintenance of 31 social housing units in Lookout, engaging 7 contractors and employing 50 persons, a project valued at over 1 million ISI. The benefit of this project has been improved housing quality, safety, and tenant well-being, employment generation, and also economic stimulation. Based on the importance of this program, in addition to the works carried out under the recurrent budget of the MLDA, a new spend has been submitted for the continuation of the corrective maintenance to the GOM social housing stock. Drummond's Infrastructure and New Build Project, Phase 1, Madam Speaker. Tenants of the government of Montserrat have been housed in temporary wooden structures referred to as family units and have been plagued with issues of rapid building deterioration coupled with poor ventilation, plumbing, and drainage defects, which have exposed the tenants to varying degrees of health and safety hazards. There is a parcel of land at Drummond's that is government-owned, and this has been identified as an area which presents an opportunity to advance and invest in housing solutions for the vulnerable. Phase 1 of this development has seen the installation of infrastructure to include drainage and utilities, water and electricity, and through the ministry's own intervention and collaboration with MUL and our service providers, Digicel and Flow, now includes ducting for underground communications at no additional cost to the project. Madam Speaker, at this point, I would like to thank the service providers for their assistance here. Phase 1 will also include a 2-story building of 4 one-bedroom units for our most vulnerable citizens, a total investment of ISI 1.5 million. Other phases planned include the construction of 4 additional multi-story units, and there is active engagement to secure funding for completion of these phases. The benefit of this project is increased housing for the vulnerable, prevention of homelessness, improved living conditions, sustainability which leads to the saving on the cost of repairs and maintenance and creating more climate-friendly or climate-resilient housing than the T111 family units currently in the area. Madam Speaker, Housing Rehabilitation and New Build Construction Project. This project seeks to assist residents located in Lookout and Davy Hill whose houses require critical repairs with grant assistance to repair their homes. The successful completion of this project will result in improvement in the structural integrity of the buildings and safer homes. The first phase of this project is aimed at the most critical units, and 10 residents are expected to benefit. These awards will vary for each household. The initial cost of this phase, Madam Speaker, is $220,000. An additional 11 grants are also planned to be issued under the Housing Construction and Rehabilitation Project through the Montserrat Land Development Authority. Staffing and capacity milestones. Madam Speaker, the strength of any ministry lies in its people. This year, we celebrated key promotions, recognized leadership within our administrative team, and filled critical vacancies, including the appointment of a new Director of Community Youth and Sports Services after a 4-year gap. Madam Speaker, thank you to the HR staff for putting up with my constant visits to get this position filled, especially after hearing the cries of our youth in Montserrat. I am also pleased to report that this year, we also recruited a senior crop protection officer, leading to the mobilization of the crop protection team to actively address loose livestock, agouti, iguana, feral chicken issues impacting residential areas and community spaces. The crop protection team, in just the first month, Madam Speaker, impounded over 20 animals, leading to a reduction in loss of crops for many of our backyard farmers. I'm pleased to say that the number of complaints has significantly reduced since the inception of this crop protection team. Furthermore, under the Agricultural Development Program, we will also be empowering this team with new equipment to better serve the needs of our farmers and enhance their crop protection ability. Madam Speaker, we heard the calls of our residents on programs like the What's on Your Mind program. These programs highlighted this specific issue especially with loose livestock. Madam Speaker, this government does not silence the voice of our people because we are committed to resolving and finding solutions to the issues our people highlight. Madam Speaker, I must say that we invested in professional development across the board, from surveyors trained in Tortola to environment officers studying biodiversity conservation in the Caribbean and the UK, with succession planning continuing, with promotions within the environmental department and the integration of apprentices into entry-level posts. We are also proudly continuing the third form career workshop and the school leavers program. Madam Speaker, at this point, I must give much thanks to Mr. Nelta Weeks for being the brainchild of this next program. The RISE program, Madam Speaker, or formerly known as the Reintegration into Society for Ex-Offenders program. This was successfully launched, blending education, agriculture, and mentorship to give every Montserratian, including our inmates, a second chance. Since we are the Ministry of Agriculture, Madam Speaker, the agricultural plot was plowed at the prison grounds, and irrigation system was also installed on the plowed land by Mr. Elvis Gerald, so that the inmates can also contribute to feeding themselves and our nation. Madam Speaker, I must also give credit to the person sitting next to me, the Honorable Dr. Ingrid Buffon, because it was her passion that created the new summer camp to which the department's summer escape program was merged. Several coaches from the Department of Sports were facilitators at this summer camp, which catered to over 200 children. Again, Madam Speaker, I will say that the children of this nation are its future. Regional project implementation. Here, Madam Speaker, our partnerships continue to strengthen Montserrat's global standing. The Royal Society for Protection of Birds is enhancing biosecurity systems across UK overseas territories. The Darwin Red Fire Ants Project treated over 4,000 colonies locally, creating jobs and protecting our biodiversity. Madam Speaker, construction also began on the modern greenhouse and tissue culture lab to be completed this year. This was donated to us by the OECS to ensure a sustainable supply of disease-free planting material. This will enhance our capacity for inputs to our local farmers, ensuring an increased availability of plant slips. Madam Speaker, there is also the Artificial Reef Project near Garibaldi Hill, and this will expand marine biodiversity and support our fishers. Madam Speaker, our teams also represented Montserrat at numerous international events, from the Caribbean Week of Agriculture to the Korea Caribbean Agriculture Research Platform, advancing our knowledge and influence. Regional and international engagements. Madam Speaker, on the global stage, Montserrat's voice continues to grow stronger. I myself represent the OECS at the Council of Ministers of Agriculture as its chairman, where I plan to foster more regional collaboration and marketing of regional produce. Part of my plans at our next sit-in is to have each member state participate in an exercise that showcases their local production so that we may decipher the gaps and overlaps in our production to better suit the needs of our people as a region in the most financially efficient way. Madam Speaker, this initiative hopefully will eventually provide a larger market for our local and regional producers and agro-processors to capitalize off economies of scale as the whole region becomes a market for each individual member state. This effort is to minimize the effect of global policies such as the American First policy and hopefully strengthen the region on a whole to be less dependent on extra-regional trade. Madam Speaker, I will again state that just like previous governments, public awareness and marketing has been lacking throughout the region. But this government will lead the charge even on the regional level. Madam Speaker, I am also proud to note the appointment of Mr. Jayesh Sadwani and Ms. Victoria Chalmers as Montserrat's CARICOM Youth Ambassadors, shining examples of the next generation of leaders. Mr. Sadwani often says he learned from me, but I'm hoping that they will set the bar even higher than myself as role models for the generations to follow them. Madam Speaker, to add to these engagements, in May 2025, we issued a commitment letter under the UK Blue Belt Programme, affirming our dedication to marine conservation and sustainable fisheries management. The UK Blue Belt Programme is specifically designed to support the UK overseas territories with the protection and sustainable management of their marine environment. Our colleagues in Anguilla, Madam Speaker, have noted the massive amounts of support given to them under this programme. We also hope to see the UK government's Blue Belt team on the ground sometime early next year to formalise this initiative. Madam Speaker, while on the topic of fisheries and marine conservation, we also signed the agreement establishing the Caribbean Regional Fisheries Mechanism, reinforcing our commitment to regional collaboration, and this too should also bring us some regional technical collaboration on the subject matter. Madam Speaker, in agriculture, through partnerships with the ECCB and CARICOM, we have secured funding for solar-powered storage facilities which are currently on island. The greenhouses, we also secured funding for greenhouses, and these will arrive in the very near future. And as mentioned earlier, a $1 million agricultural development program that strengthens our food systems and supports our farmers. We are also expanding biodiversity and conservation efforts, from the translocation of 22 mountain chickens back from Europe for reintroduction to the development of key biodiversity indicators that will guide our environmental strategy. And the last topic, Madam Speaker, stakeholder engagement and community outreach. Finally, Madam Speaker, our ministry continues to build trust and transparency through direct engagement. From the Department of Agriculture's live tilapia demonstration on St. Patrick's Market Day and facilitation of a one-week prawn production training and field visit, and at this point, allow me to say thank you to the Honourable Cranston Buffon for actually helping us with this initiative, to the Farmers and Fishers and Agro-Processors Survey, marking a key step towards improved data collection and agricultural sector planning, to the ICA-funded African swine fever training. Madam Speaker, the ministry has prioritized education and collaboration. The Land Registry has also enhanced public communication by publishing notices online and through radio programs. One such to mention is the Crown Title Act publication. And if I may add, this was an act that actually originated during the time of Honourable Romeo's premiership. Madam Speaker, we also had the Physical Planning Unit deepening community outreach through GIS Day events and school engagements. The Department of Community, Youth and Sports Services also hosted Youth Week under the theme, Breaking Limitations to Create a Future of Endless Possibilities, showcasing our young people's potential and resilience. And our Department of Environment, Madam Speaker, continues to build awareness, teaching biosecurity in our schools, at our ports, and across our communities, building a culture of stewardship and care for our island's home. In closing, Madam Speaker, throughout this past year, our ministry has faced challenges, especially as a small island, and I would add, redeveloping state. But we have also demonstrated what is possible when vision meets dedication and when leadership and partnership meet purpose. Every policy advanced, every grant distributed, every project completed, they all speak to one unwavering truth, that Montserrat is moving forward. We are building stronger communities by empowering our youth, protecting our environment, investing in agricultural production, and laying the foundations for a future defined by resilience, opportunity, and pride. As we move into the next year, we do so with renewed determination to serve, to protect, and to build a Montserrat that every citizen can call home with confidence and hope. Madam Speaker, this was my first year as a minister, but I would like to say thanks first to the people of Montserrat especially those who are often constructively critical of me, pushing me to be the best that I can be for the country. And secondly, Madam Speaker, to my team at the ministry for giving me your unwavering support and respect as your minister. In the ministry, Madam Speaker, we don't think of the minister as the top branch. We see the ministry as a web or system where everyone plays a critical role. And Madam Speaker, I think this outlook has helped to foster better teamwork and communication, leading to a lot of the outcomes we stated here today. Madam Speaker, the ministry has a wide spectrum of regional and international strategic partners, and that spectrum includes those in horticulture, livestock and poultry, also fisheries and ocean governance, forestry and environmental management. In addition, in the other portfolios of the ministry, we are also grateful for the support of a wide range of committed strategic partners whose technical and professional support continue to have a positive impact on our work. And Madam Speaker, there were just too many for me to list, and I didn't want to forget anybody. But this also includes, of course, the many areas that we are connected with in youth and sports. Madam Speaker, to these strategic partners, we say thank you. Madam Speaker, I am also particularly pleased that our partnership with our local stakeholders continues not only to flourish, but to expand. We are already seeing evidence of this in agriculture, sports, and the various community groups. To these local stakeholders, we also say thank you. Madam Speaker, last but certainly not least, I would like to thank the entire United Alliance team, led by the very experienced Honourable Premier, Ruben Timid, who through his very motivational leadership style has propelled myself and the other members of the team to be true representatives of the people of Montserrat. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I therefore commend this statement to the Assembly, and may God continue to bless the people and the nation of Montserrat.
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Education and Health.
Madam Speaker, permit me to sit due to a twisted ankle sustained while running yesterday.
You may sit.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, I'm tempted to just, say a few words rather than to read this entire 3,000 words, much of which has been said in different stages over the course of the past year. But anyway, I shall try, and I shall try to be quick. Just to compliment Honourable Deputy Premier Dorset Hector and Honourable Osborne for their very excellent and inspiring summary speeches this morning. So, Madam Speaker, thank you. Allow me to begin by complimenting you on your 1 year as Speaker of the House. I think you've been truly incredible. You've shown professionalism and integrity. In education, Madam Speaker, we've gone miles in creating the correct framework for special educational needs with the creation of new roles which are presently being filled: special educational needs coordinator, speech and language therapist, special ed personal assistants and teaching assistants, and behavioral therapist. We await the educational psychologist and the creation of a SEN unit. Our SEN unit paper has been prepared, and it's simply awaiting its moment in cabinet, and we already have the funding in education for the SEN unit. I'd like to thank those educational psychologists and other persons in SEN who have really made a huge difference since we got into office in helping the students who were diagnosed with special educational needs in 2023. In particular, I must thank Dr. Carol Tewitt for her hard work that she's done voluntarily, and our SEN team in the US who came to our summer program earlier this year. I would also like to say that our technical subjects program is slowly coming into fruition. We are awaiting the transfer of funds again in education to cover repairs in special ed, which are necessary for us to begin transformation, not special ed, sorry, technical subjects, in order for us to begin transforming our technical subjects program into something that we can be proud of. The hope is that as we go forward, that our students will be able to benefit from the 32 technical and vocational subjects, the CVQs, that the CXC organization provides. For this, we need building repairs, we need new training of staff, we need additional staff, and we need new focus. So I'm very anxious for us to get this started. I'm just going to skim through highlights of this, Madam Speaker. I think it'll make it easier for all of us in the room. In terms of teacher retention, we had huge plans for teacher retention. And I think the one thing we've managed to achieve is perhaps communication. We are communicating much better with our teachers in education. We've had several meetings. I must give a special thank you to the Montserrat Union of Teachers, led by their president, who has just been re-elected. Congratulations to you. The Montserrat Union of Teachers really facilitated some very excellent forums for communication with teachers. The whole idea is to incorporate teachers into our defining the problems in education and into creating solutions for education, funding permitted. There's some things that we still hope to do for teachers which will need a little bit more work from a social point of view. We're hoping to allow them to be free on the list of government workers who receive free health care at Glendon Hospital. So I pray that this is in the works and there is some support for it inside of health. Other aspects such as attention to housing, we really need to still work on. Teachers on Montserrat are paid less than teachers in the rest of the region. And there's some other aspects that are going to be funding dependent, like staff development, curriculum development. We're hoping to put some focus on a training college for teachers as we go forward. So our Education Act talks about a teacher training college. Digital transformation of education, Madam Speaker, this obviously requires funding, but rest assured, presently we're doing very well with ensuring that we have adequate equipment for this, and some training is happening, and there is some purchasing of software which will significantly contribute to our first step in transforming education digitally. As you know, Madam Speaker, the digital transformation of education is felt to be able to bring a wealth of knowledge to teachers and students. It is able to get rid of the barriers that language and special ed often create, and it takes some of the workload off teachers, so we're very happy to push that forward. A sore point for me is the transition from secondary to tertiary education. I feel that our students need more support with this. I'd like to challenge the Chevening alumni to take on this by ensuring that the students, particularly third, fourth, and fifth formers at the Montserrat Secondary School, have a better understanding of career opportunities out there and how they can access them through tertiary education. And this must also include how to access scholarships and student loans. Extremely important in allowing our students on Montserrat to take the next step. You know, not everybody wants to go to tertiary to enter tertiary education, but for the students who choose to, and for the students who have potential in this regard, I think it's really important that we adequately prepare them for the moment where they need to be applying. So, very hopeful for this. In literacy and numeracy, the Ministry of Education has taken up the challenge. We have hired a numeracy expert. Hats off to this particular expert, who is quite grassroots in his approach and is incorporating the views of teachers and students in his plans for improving numeracy rates on Montserrat. As you know, Madam Speaker, our rates are disappointing, but we know that our students are bright and have potential. So if we can unlock this potential, Madam Speaker, we'll go a long way in getting our rates up. And we're presently awaiting a literacy expert in education. Safeguarding, Madam Speaker, I must mention, safeguarding spans every ministry. It is how we protect our children and our vulnerable adults. So in education, we signed safeguarding policy pushed by the previous governor, Sarah Tucker. Thank you for that. Safeguarding board. Out of this safeguarding board came safeguarding policy, which we're working on at the moment, and there are units being set up to ensure that our children can have no fear in reporting episodes of abuse. And on Montserrat, I think it's really important that we make very strong efforts to stamp out all forms of abuse here: sexual abuse, financial abuse, neglect. There's so many forms. I would really love if we could work together in all ministries to ensure that we're securing funding for safeguarding on Montserrat and keeping our children safe. Our elderly, Madam Speaker, and our otherwise vulnerable, it's very important that we look out for these persons as well. Moving swiftly along to healthcare, Madam Speaker. We are hoping still for the merger of the Margetson and the Golden Years home. Earlier this year, there was a policy for older persons. We need to make sure that we're implementing this. The merger for Golden Years and Margetson will bring benefits such as equalizing payment of staff, and we're hoping that with it will come the expansion of the home to include a dementia section. 13% of patients with dementia have behavioral problems that the present homes are unable to deal with, and very often patients are offloaded onto the hospital, block acute care beds, and take up the time of our nurses who are dedicated to acute care. So they're hoping that this merger shall happen soon enough, and that with it we can see an expansion. So the merger is waiting on the terms of reference for the merger transition manager has been sorted. We're waiting for that person to be hired. And of course, this is going to involve funding arrangements and a steering committee being formed, but we look forward to this being rolled out over the course of the year. The new hospital, Madam Speaker, congratulations to CIE, the contractors, who I think are quite excellent. I must thank also Carlos Pina, the hospital manager, and the wider team for their hard work on the new hospital project, which looks really promising without any significant delays. So in March of 2027, we shall have on Montserrat a new hospital, a 30-year ask. So thank you very much to all involved, including the previous government, for their hard work on this project. Moving along, Montserrat has been working on a memorandum of understanding through the Ministry of Health that will sort out our Medivac woes. As you know, we have had several episodes of suboptimal medical evacuations, and it is very important that we get this sorted so that we can adequately deal with our time-critical emergencies. We need to not be sending patients tomorrow 400 miles down the coast with additional cost. We need to send them to the closest and safest place. The Cabinet has asked for the Memorandum of Understanding on MOU to be presented to it since August, so we're hoping that this will be done by the end of the year. Very sore topic for me, Madam Speaker. The difference is, for example, in the case of stroke, if we were unable to manage a stroke on Montserrat, if we got them to Guadeloupe, for example, which is 40 miles away with 19 really incredible specialties, the patient could potentially 2 days later walk out of the hospital with lipstick on, handbag over her shoulder, high heel shoes on, and continue to live a normal life. So how we deal with our time-critical emergencies on this island is extremely important. I cannot stress that enough. Time-critical emergencies, as the name suggests, are time-critical, and we need to send them now and not tomorrow. Moving swiftly along, we are waiting in health for an emergency medicine consultant. This has been approved by the FCDO, was approved in February of this year. So the idea is to provide consultant-led care to the emergency department at Glendon. This will ensure that we're following current guidelines and protocols, for example, guidelines of the National Institute of Clinical Excellence, and to make sure that we're providing, very excellent patient-centered, evidence-based care as one would expect coming out of consultants produced by the Royal College of Emergency Medicine in the UK. So I'm really anxious to see this happen as soon as possible. There have been some delays in this regard. I must thank the team for welcoming, through communication, the first vascular surgeon who shall come to Montserrat. So we stood on the platform and promised you this. Extremely grateful that this is coming into fruition. As you know, on Montserrat, just as in the rest of the Caribbean, because of diabetes and hypertension, amputation is a problem. So the patients who have been diabetic for a long time or have had elevated cholesterol, over several years, this causes a blockage of the circulation, which results in reduced circulation to the legs, which results in the dying off of the leg, of the foot. By the time the person is seen by a surgeon who could make an intervention, very often only possibility is to chop the leg off. But if you have your intervention 2 years earlier, then you can actually save the person's leg. But this means that our clinicians need to be examining patients' feet as recommended by CAFA, in particular patients at risk. This means that our patients must present to have their feet looked at. This means that we must be performing vascular ultrasounds on this island to look at the blood vessels of the patients and referring the patients to the vascular surgeon so that they can have an intervention at the level of the blood vessels so they won't have to have the dead foot removed 2 years later. So this is extremely important. Thank you for the team, for agreeing to this, and we look forward to progress in this area. Madam Speaker, kidney disease, very important to me. As you know, in the region, diabetes and hypertension again are the primary causes of chronic kidney disease. In fact, it's a worldwide phenomenon. In the Caribbean, one of our disadvantages is that we've inherited APOL1 at a prevalence rate somewhere between 20 and 60%. This is a gene inherited from our West African descent, and it means that if you have APOL1 and you are subject to dehydration or viral infection, you are more likely to develop kidney disease. Needless to say, Madam Speaker, at our district clinics on Montserrat, 25% of the patients there have some form of chronic kidney disease, and on Montserrat we lose 2 patients every year due to chronic kidney disease. The patients who do not die of end-stage kidney disease here, they have not died because they have left the island, and I think that's very unfair. There is a proposal from a philanthropist who is able to roll out a dialysis program on Montserrat within 90 days of us signing this proposal. It looks incredible, Madam Speaker. As Minister, I have said yes. I am waiting on the Permanent Secretary and the Chief Medical Officer to agree to the proposal so we can take it to the next level. Obviously, it has to go through a rigorous procurement process, but we are hopeful for dialysis. To be able to have that possibility on Montserrat, I think, would be fantastic. Dialysis also supports patients in critical illness. Very often when patients succumb to critical illness, they develop multi-organ failure, which knocks out the kidneys, resulting in them having to be dialyzed. So it will be useful in critical care as well. In terms of early cancer diagnosis that we promised on the platform, Madam Speaker, we have had several visits from an endoscopy service over the course of the year. Very thankful. There are patients who are having upper gastrointestinal endoscopies and colonoscopies to rule out a gastrointestinal cancer. Gastrointestinal cancers are one of the areas which traditionally we have fallen short, resulting in a late diagnosis in many cases. So we're very grateful to the teams who have assisted in this program, grateful to the ministry to facilitating it. We look forward to more. As we go forward into year 2, I'm looking forward to more conversations on a cancer screening, diagnosis, and alert mechanism through health information systems, our electronic medical record service that will allow us to alert patients of the screening investigations that they need according to age. For example, your yearly PSA to assess for prostate cancer, your yearly CA-125 for ovarian cancer, that sort of thing. We also desperately need a cancer screening registry so that we can have an account of what cancers have been diagnosed on island. Part of our problem in this regard is that many of our patients leave for diagnosis and treatment, and many of them pass away abroad. So it's often difficult to keep track of our cancers, but it would be fantastic to have a cancer screening registry that also reached out to the diaspora so that we knew what our people had. Just the reminder that Montserrat is not 4,300 persons, but is 50,000 strong. When we include our diaspora, that makes us quite a mighty nation, and we should not forget them. In environmental health, Madam Speaker, I had a really good meeting recently with the environmental health team. funding permitted, we're hoping that over the course of the next year we can provide them with what they need to do better work. One of these things, got to look at our FS, one of these things involves the purchase of a piece of equipment that allows them to cover the garbage at the dump site more effectively. They also need transportation to and from the dump site. It's in that area, there's no communication. It's a challenging place to work. So however we can facilitate our environmental health workers, I think we really should. The end result of investing in environmental health means less flies, less mosquitoes and roaches, less diseases, and a more beautiful environment. And speaking of beautiful environments, Madam Speaker, the reminder, like Honourable Dorset Hector, to our population to please stop littering. Do not throw your garbage on the road and in public places. It's truly unsightly, and it encourages creatures which will cause a rise in disease on island, not to mention it makes us less beautiful as an island. So please hold your garbage until you get to a bin, I beg you. If you go snorkeling in some of the waters on Montserrat, you'll also notice that there's garbage underwater in some areas. So I urge partygoers, people who enjoy beach fetes, to go to the beaches the day after to clean up after your beach fete, because under the water can become quite unsightly and it's not very safe for marine life. In social services, Madam Speaker, I would like to thank the entire United Alliance team, in particular the Premier, for pushing to equalize the cost of healthcare on Montserrat. It's something that has been very dear to our heart since the elections. We, in the summer of this year, by the end of the summer, we got the paper approved to make sure that Montserratians and non-nationals have the same fees at the casualty department in terms of cost of care, laboratory investigations, and medications. It's really important. It's really important to me that a mother from Guyana and Jamaica does not have to purchase medication for her children when the Montserratian mother does not. This means that her children are more vulnerable than Montserratian children, and that should not be fair. At the end of the day, we are all one on this island. So thank you for the team. There have been a few delays in getting this sorted, so we're hoping that soon we're getting the administrative process to happen to make sure that it's taken effect. So very soon this should take effect. So we are ensuring that children who are on Montserrat, who perhaps were not born on Montserrat or were born to parents who are non-nationals, will not be discriminated against in terms of their access to health care, to avoid a disparity which just would not be right. Many thanks to the Social Services Department for their hard work on this. And I know there are other aspects of the work in the Social Services Department in terms of social protection. There are other aspects of social protection that non-nationals will need to access from time to time. So there's some things that need to be changed there. Thank you for the support of the team in social services for this. Thank you. Thank you, Honourable Cranston Buffong, for the coffee. I could have used that an hour ago and I would have actually read this speech. So I've come to the end of my speed read of what would have been 3,482 painful words. I'm sure the team is thankful that I have not read it word for word. My final words are thank you to the nurses, doctors, nursing assistants, laboratory workers, radiologists, everybody in health, orderlies, drivers, to the teachers, teaching assistants, personal assistants, office workers, groundsmen. Thank you for all the persons in our government offices in education, health, and social service, and the government at large, to be honest. Thank you for your hard work over the course of the year. Thank you very much to the electorate for voting for us. We are grateful, and I believe we have done justice to your vote. I want to thank our Honourable Premier for his support over the course of the year. We look forward to more support as we go forward into our next year in office. I know it is challenging from time to time, but I think we've done pretty well as a team. Thank you to Honourable Dorset Hector, who does an excellent job when the Premier is away. We harass her quite a lot in pre-cabinet. Thank you for taking all of those blows. but she really does rise to the cause of it. Thank you very, very much. And thank you in particular for your integrity and your love for children and humanity. Much appreciate that. Thank you to Honorable Osborne. Finally, I can make lemonade with honey and lime and grapefruit and oranges. There shall be no vitamin C deficiency on this island. And also for his hard work in policies that he just outlined to ensure that we are actually able to eat off the land on this island. As you know, health and education are very, very closely connected. If we are not eating healthy food from the land, we shall succumb to the diseases, the non-communicable diseases that we speak about. And just note, Madam Speaker, that in the Caribbean region, 70% of our deaths are due to non-communicable diseases. So these are diseases that the prevalence and the incidence can be reduced by healthy eating and by exercise. I urge the people of Montserrat to try your best to eat from the land. If it comes from a packet and it has been processed in a factory, it is not food. It is not what you need to be eating. Honorable Dorset would like to remind me to speak to the mothers who are preparing food for the children. We're hoping to have interventions over the course of the year to really let children understand what it is that they should be eating. I forgot to mention earlier our summer program, which was awesome. We're hoping that in the summer program of 2026, we can actually implement the youth nutrition policy and help the children to feed themselves with locally grown food. Thank you so much to Honorable Cranston Buffong, a source of support. We cannot thank you enough for being on this side of the House. It means everything to us. We are very much aware that you were topping in the elections in 2024. Thank you for Dwayne Hickson, who covers me in education every time I leave, which has become quite frequent. Thank you, Dwayne. I leave again on the 18th to spend some time with my parents. So as we go forward into next year, I'm hoping that the teams in Education, Health and Social Services will permit me to arrange meetings that deal in particular with policy and law. For it is only with through tackling policy and law in education, health and social services that we can ensure that the work of this team and the work in these ministries will have long-term input. Thank you to the people of Montserrat for listening to this quick rant, but I'm pretty sure you've heard it all before.
I recognize the Honorable Parliamentary Secretary Buffon.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I missed the coffee, by the way. We're accustomed to having a little bit of snack and coffee at Parliament, but we understand the circumstances under which we are. Nevertheless, Madam Speaker, there is no sugar in your coffee. It's here if you want to add. Madam Speaker, and to all listening orders and this Honourable House, good morning. I think it's still morning. Today I rise to present a report on 4 vital sectors that shape our island's identity and our economic future, that being tourism, culture, diaspora, and trade, or diaspora, as I was corrected before. Now, these are not separate compartments of government work. What they are interconnected forces that interact with the daily lives of every Montserratian. From the taxi driver or tour operator greeting persons as they arrive, to the masquerade dancers preserving our culture and our heritage, and to the business owners selling locally made products and our diaspora returning home. Let me be clear from the onset. Building a thriving tourism and cultural economy is not an overnight endeavor. These are dynamic sectors with many moving parts and many stakeholders. Success, therefore, requires patience. It requires partnership. It requires persistence and continuing to build on what already exists. But I stand before you today with evidence that we continue to make real progress and with a vision of how we move forward together. Tourism, building on our unique story, as I caption it. Madam Speaker, let me start with the numbers. In 2024, Montserrat welcomed 13,041 visitors, 8,779 stay-over tourists, 988 cruise visitors, and 1,986 yacht visitors. These visitors spend an average of about 730 EC dollars per day, with the trippers contributing just about $420 per person. This represents that people are willing to invest in the Montserrat experience. But beyond the numbers, we have to ask ourselves, why do people come to Montserrat? Why do they choose Montserrat above every other Caribbean country in the region? In my view, Madam Speaker, and this is my view, others might have their own view, visitors are drawn here for 4 primary reasons: peace and tranquility, adventure, heritage and culture, including our festivals and our diaspora connections, particularly those with family ties still on the island. And so to add, Madam Speaker, I want to add to that group our sports tourism and to include our motorsport racing when it comes on stream. These motivations, Madam Speaker, are the foundations of our tourism strategy moving forward. Now, currently, the majority of our visitors are members from our diaspora, Montserratians returning home or their descendants discovering their roots. This is absolutely important, but if we are to grow, we must broaden this demographic. We must reach the adventure traveler seeking our hiking trails and our volcano experience. We must attract the cultural enthusiast who wants the Montserratian experience. And we must welcome those who are simply seeking to escape the noise of the modern world. So what sets us apart, Madam Speaker? What sets us apart is that while the Caribbean islands predominantly focus on sun, sea, and sand, Montserrat possesses something extraordinary, our buried city, or as some call it, the Pompeii of the Caribbean. No other Caribbean destination can offer what we can: the chance to walk through a modern town that's frozen in time by volcanic ash, and to witness nature's raw power, and to see a people's resilience in the face of disaster. This must be perfected, and our signature program, this must be perfected as our signature tourism product. The Buried Cities Tour is not just an attraction. It is our story of survival, of adaptation, and hope that resonates with every visitor on a profound level. This is the emotion feeling that this tour should sell. This is why at the Authority we are seeking to use AI, virtual reality, and QR codes as tools to show what is and what was. It is hard to explain to somebody what Plymouth looked like from St. George's Hill or from Richmond Hill with them never seen it before. So with these tools, we expect to give them that experience that they can speak to for the rest of their lives. The Montserrat Tourism Authority has been hard at work making this vision a reality. Through the EU project implementation, we have so far enhanced 8 hiking trails, with 7 already completed. We have upgraded our viewing sites at Jotwai Hill. We have improved signages across the island, and our marine village improvements are on the way. And Madam Speaker, I am exceptionally proud of this one. We are currently preparing the St. George's Hill site to offer a more immersive tour to people when they come here. And our Richmond Hill Museum renovation is ongoing, and it's going very smoothly. Madam Speaker, infrastructure is just a part of the equation. Yes, we have to have the infrastructure in place, but our people are our greatest tourism asset. That is why we have trained 46 public and private sector workers in community service and conducted tour and taxi training to strengthen their service delivery. Now, we cannot say or speak about tourism without standards. This is why we are continuing the development of our tourism standards to ensure quality assurance across the board. This is not limited to food and beverage or the accommodation sectors, but also the quality of our cultural events and the conditions of our tourism sites across the country, etc. Now, it's one thing to have a unique product, but it's an entirely different thing to make sure that it gets out there to people and they understand that it's here. So a part of our program, Madam Speaker, is letting the people know that we have these amenities and these features in Ireland. As a result, our marketing reach has expanded significantly. On Facebook alone, we have achieved 4.6 million views and 213,000 reach. We've partnered with major media outlets, including Mail Online in the UK, the Saturday Times, and publications across Canada and the United States. We have worked with influencers and content creators, contracted local talent, and participated in major trade shows from the Caribbean Marketplace to Seatrade Cruise Global. Looking ahead, we are launching new promotional videos highlighting St. Patrick's Festival, continuing sale calls leading up to Carnival and St. Patrick's 2026, and expanding our social media campaigns. We are also progressing on the Volcano Heritage Trail. We are also working in collaboration with the Montserrat Volcano Observatory and the Montserrat National Trust in establishing our UNESCO Global and Geoparks initiatives. We're also working with the Department of Environment on the Protect, Preserve, and Prosper campaigns, including youth tree planting and beach cleanups across the country. Madam Speaker, to be honest, so far we have not been able to capitalize fully on our blue economy sector. Understanding the need and the cost involved, the intention, therefore, is to design concessions aimed at developing and improving. So far, Madam Speaker, we have been selling and marketing what our country provides naturally. The focus now must be the introduction of man-made attractions that complements, not take away, from these national assets. For example, forest zip lines and a beachside turtle hatchery, allowing our tourists to be a part of our conservation drive by releasing baby turtles or older ones at cost back into the wild. Madam Speaker, I'm a firm believer in truth and rights, and we must be honest about our challenges. Access remains our biggest obstacle. We're a small, limited country with limited flights, and ferry services are very hard to come by. However, we will continue promoting access through our Tinota services and improve our connections in Antigua through regional radio and in-flight campaigns. We must strengthen our partnerships with ferry operators and regional carriers as well, understanding that there are lives and livelihoods that depends on this very important sector. We must also ensure that as visitors arrive, they find the quality infrastructure, good roads, reliable utilities, consistent internet, and well-maintained tourism sites. This is government's obligation, and we are working to deliver on it. But we cannot do it alone. We need our private sector, our taxi operators, our guest house owners, our restaurant managers, our tour guides. All of them, Madam Speaker, even you yourself, is an ambassador. Their service, their warmth, and their professionalism determine whether visitors return and whether they tell their friends and families about us. Culture, or what I call or determine to be the soul of our nation. Madam Speaker, if tourism is our opportunity, is our economic opportunity, culture is our soul. It is what makes us Montserratians. It is what we product, what we preserve, and what we pass on to the next generation. The Montserrat Arts Council continues to work on our cultural programs to include our festivals, our youth programs, different trainings, and provide essential support to different organizations and even our event promoters. In total, the Art Council assisted 47 cultural programs and festivals this year. But the numbers that impress me most, Madam Speaker, are these. Over 950 creatives supported this year. This includes students, performers, vendors, musicians, and workshop participants. And through the National Cultural Development Project, over 60 youth are currently engaged in masquerade training across Braids, Lookout, St. Augustine Primary Schools, and the Montserrat Secondary Schools. Madam Speaker, this is how our culture stays alive, not just in museums, but in the hands and hearts of our young people. When a child learns to dance the masquerades, they're not just learning the steps. They're connecting to centuries of African heritage, Irish influence, and distinctly Montserratian creativity. They're learning the discipline and pride. Madam Speaker, I want to learn it too. And I think every Montserratian should be able to dance the masquerade. There's no excuse why we can't participate when we hear the music playing. So I am committing myself, hopefully by Christmas, to be able to at least put my two left feet together and look like the part. Madam Speaker, what they're learning is discipline. It's pride, it's identity, and what better way to showcase these talents and productions than having our own state-of-the-art cultural center renovated and refurbished. Madam Speaker, a couple of weeks ago we hosted the Council of Ministers of Trade on Montserrat. It was a task, and I commend the people and the staff at the Office of the Premier, in finding an alternative venue that was suitable to hold the event. Madam Speaker, we went as far as, well, being washed out on the first day. From backup generators failing to rain, we had to cancel the first day simply because of having a facility that's dedicated to this sort of events. So, of course, the cultural center is an important part of our Montserrat culture. Madam Speaker, on a serious note, the MAC board is in place and is given its commitment to work towards refining our national cultural policy. Looking forward, MAC will complete and submit the national cultural policy, expand cultural development programs in music, pan, poetry writing, storytelling, masquerades, mentorship, and also theater. Our cultural curriculum will be strengthened within the schools. The creation of a natural artist registry and the development of a creative economic plan which will strengthen our regional links, including preparation for Carifesta. Madam Speaker, the topic of Carifesta has caused a lot of stir across this country. There were some who felt that us missing Carifesta was an embarrassment. Madam Speaker, I dare say, I believe strongly that regional representation at all levels and discipline should be at the highest level that represents us as Montserratians and what we hold dear to our heart. Not just participation, Madam Speaker, or attendance just because we can. Madam Speaker, I must acknowledge that MAC operates under severe budgetary and HR constraints. The demand for cultural programming far exceeds their fiscal space, and the level of voluntary participation over the years has been declining. However, through strategic partnerships with tourism, for example, MAC continues to deliver programs that preserve our heritage and develop our creative economy. Trade, Madam Speaker. Trade has the potential to open new doors for Montserrat. I will now attempt to show or to connect tourism and culture to the third pillar, which is trade. Because our cultural products, our music, our art, our craft, and our food are indeed tradable goods. Our tourism services are trading services. These sectors are inseparable. Last month, I had the honor of chairing and hosting the OECS 7th meeting of the Council of Ministers for Trade right here in Montserrat, as stated before. Before that, I attended and presented at the SIDS conference, or the Sustainable Island Summit in St. Kitts and Nevis, where renewable energy solutions were on the forefront of the deliberations. This was significant, not just symbolic. Key decisions were made that will directly impact our economic future. First, we are on the verge of implementing finally our OECS customs union and free circulation of goods. Now, what does this mean for Montserrat? It means our locally produced products, our wines, our cassava breads, among other things, those featured at Prime, our crafts, our agricultural goods can move freely throughout the OECS without tariff barriers. It means reduced costs for our producers and expanded markets for our goods. Second, we are establishing a free trading services regime, that is free movement of service personnel within the OECS Union, and also the free movement of people across the OECS. This, Madam Speaker, is especially positive for Montserrat, as we endeavor not only to build and diversify the skill sets of our population, but also to grow our population. Third, given the political and economic uncertainty stemming from the America First trade policies, we are examining the scope for sourcing goods from non-traditional markets to include our region, Africa, the Dominican Republic, and beyond, as opposed to relying solely on the US market. This, Madam Speaker, is about resilience. This is about diversification. This is about ensuring that when global policies shift, Montserrat is not left vulnerable in the wake of what I call women fancies of these bigger countries. So how does this connect to every demonstration, Madam Speaker? Let me be plain. When we reduce trade barriers, prices can potentially come down on imported goods. When we expand markets for local products, our entrepreneurs can earn more. When our service professionals can work regionally, the possibilities for building our population increases. When we diversify our import sources, we have more stable supply chains and potentially better prices. Madam Speaker, here is where it all comes together. As seen in our Produced in Montserrat Expo or Prime, this is a perfect example of tourism, culture, and trade working together as one. We showcase local products to residents and visitors. We celebrate our creative and entrepreneurial spirit. We create opportunities for sale and partnerships across the region and, of course, the rest of the world. Our cultural performances draw crowds, and tourists discover authentic Montserratian products to take home. Local businesses, even our very own, I dare say Miss Ryan across the floor with her products, can find a new market. Local businesses connect with regional distributors. This is a model we must replicate and expand. Madam Speaker, as I close, I want to emphasize one critical point. Our people must be the center of everything we do as government. Tourists or tourism doesn't happen without our immigration and customs officers who warmly welcome our visitors, or the taxi drivers who share island stories during the ride. It doesn't happen without our guest house owners who clean and ensure that the rooms are comfortable and up to standards. It doesn't happen without the restaurant chef who prepares and prepare fresh, delicious local cuisine. It doesn't happen without our tour guides who competently traverse our forests and hiking trails, or bringing the buried city to life with their knowledge and their passion. Culture doesn't survive without our masquerade teacher passing on his skills to the next generation. It doesn't thrive without the calypso writer, even our honorable leader of the opposition, crafting clever verses in whatever way he feels. It doesn't grow without the festival organizers coordinating hundreds of moving paths, and it doesn't spread without the artists brave enough to share the work on these stages. Trade, Madam Speaker, doesn't expand without the entrepreneur willing to invest in quality products. It doesn't succeed without the policymaker creating enabling frameworks. And it doesn't benefit us without the community members supporting the local businesses. But equally, Madam Speaker, and I say equitably, government has its obligations. We must provide and maintain the infrastructure. We must fix our roads so our tour buses can reach safely to the attractions. Reliable utilities so that businesses can operate. Consistent internet so that we can market globally. And of course, adequate water. And I knock on wood and pray to the Most High that this continues to be our blessing. Madam Speaker, we have to continue to maintain and develop our tourism sites. We must provide the access. We must continue to work with our airlines and our ferry operators to improve our connections. We must provide the training and the standard assurance that's suitable for Montserrat. We must create the policy frameworks that enable rather than hinder, and we must continue to invest even when our budgets are tight. Madam Speaker, what is our vision for the future? I am not going to stand here today and promise overnight transformations. Real sustainable growth takes time, but I am going to promise continued commitment, strategic planning, and genuine partnerships across all our stakeholders. We will perfect our buried city tour and leverage it as our signature product. We will broaden our visitor demographics beyond our diaspora, important as they may be. We will continue training and supporting our tourism and cultural workers because they are our greatest assets. Madam Speaker, we will expand our regional trade partnerships so that our Montserratian products and services reach the wider markets. We will continue to integrate tourism, culture, and trade in events like Prime in our everyday work. And we will continue to build and maintain the infrastructure that enables all of this to flourish. The world is discovering what we have always known. Montserrat is special. Our resilience before and after the volcano, our rich cultural heritage, blending African and Irish traditions, our national and natural beauty, our genuine warmth. These cannot be replicated. Therefore, they are authentically and uniquely ours. To the taxi operators, our tour guides, our guest home owners, our restaurant workers, our artisans, musicians, dancers, festival organizers, entrepreneurs, and every resident who contributes to our tourism, culture, and trade sectors, thank you. Your work matters, your service matters, your creativity matters. You are building our Montserrat's future. To our visitors and our diaspora, thank you for choosing Montserrat every time. Thank you for investing in our economy. Thank you for celebrating our culture and for telling our story to the world. To the staff at the Montserrat Arts Council, which, maybe I shouldn't say yet, but we need to change the name. We need to reflect culture in the Montserrat Arts Council. To the staff at the Arts Council, the Tourism Authority, Trade, and the Office of the Premier, I say thank you for your continued support. And to my ministerial colleagues and this Honourable House, I ask for your continued support. These sectors require sustained investments, patience during the building phase, and recognition that success in these areas benefits all of Montserrat. Our diaspora, tourism, culture, and trade are not luxuries. They are the economic engines of employment. They are generators, and they are the identity preservers. Culture provides the creativity. Tourism provides the market. Trade provides the platform to sell, export, grow businesses, and our diaspora is the key in providing remittances, knowledge and skill transfer, investments, and entrepreneurships, trade, and market access. Madam Speaker, finally, the journey continues. The progress is real. The potential is enormous. And the future, I dare say, is bright for Montserrat and everyone within. Thank you.
I recognize the Honorable Parliamentary Secretary Hickson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise today with deep gratitude and humility as I reflect on 1 year of service in this honorable House. Madam Speaker, it's truly an honor to stand in this chamber and represent the people of Montserrat, a people defined by resilience, faith, and an unyielding commitment to progress. Madam Speaker, when I first took my oath of office, I did so with a promise to serve honestly, to listen carefully, and to work tirelessly on behalf of all who call Montserrat home. 1 year later, that promise remains the guiding principle of everything I do. Madam Speaker, the first year has been both challenging and enlightening. It has given me a deeper appreciation for the complexities of governance and an even greater respect for those who have served before us. Madam Speaker, most importantly, it has reinforced my belief that our collective strength as a people lives in our unity, our creativity, and our shared vision for the future of Montserrat. Throughout the past year, I've worked closely with my colleagues in government and across the aisles to address some of the pressing issues facing our island. Madam Speaker, we have debated policies, developed plans, and made difficult decisions, all with one goal, Madam Speaker, to build a stronger and more self-reliant Montserrat. Madam Speaker, we know the road ahead is not easy. Our economy continues to recover and diversify. We face ongoing challenges in housing, healthcare, and education. And our young people, Madam Speaker, those who are the heart of Montserrat's future, continue to call for greater opportunities here at home. Madam Speaker, opportunities that will allow them to stay, to grow, to contribute to our island's development. We must continue to invest in our human capital, in training, technology, and innovation, because people, our people, are our greatest resource. Equally important, Madam Speaker, is the work we must do to strengthen our resilience. Climate change, natural hazards, global economic pressures all demand that we prepare wisely and plan strategically. Over this past year, I have supported measures aimed at improving our disaster preparedness, protecting our environment, and promoting renewable energy, because safeguarding Montserrat's future requires foresight and responsibility today. Speaking about foresight, Madam Speaker, south of Bellam Valley is a very, very important area to the economy of Montserrat. And when I said south of Bellam, I mean the Alsby Hill area, Cork Hill, Foxes Bay. Madam Speaker, we have miners working in there. We have farmers. We have the geothermal well, gardeners, tourist sites, poolmen, plumbers, painters, electricians, housekeepers, and even new residential properties are under construction, and renovations have been ongoing to a few residential properties, especially in the Foxes Bay area. Madam Speaker, we have the Isles Bay Beach Bar that is south of the Bellam, and they have staff. It is also important to note that there are full-time residents living in these areas, especially in the Alsby Hill area. About half of the houses there are occupied by full-time residents, and the other houses are occupied by snowbirds. Madam Speaker, after every rainfall, especially when it's falling heavy in the Gauges, Salem area, the DMCA will survey the areas and liaise with the build team as to when the build team can go ahead and reconnect the sandy, temporary roads that we access those areas. Madam Speaker, it means, so every time it rains heavily, the Bellam Valley, I'll take that again. Every time it rains heavily and the Bellam Valley flows, we are back to square one, having to go and refix the roads. And Madam Speaker, it's been going on for a very long time. That reminder is a preamble to the present excavation taking place at the Bellam Bridge crossing. Madam Speaker, I do not believe in doing things that are not sustainable. In 1998, after continuous lahars or mud flows down the Bellam Valley, nature reshaped our island and buried much of what we once knew. The Soufriere Hills volcano tested us in many ways we could never imagine. Madam Speaker, the Bellam Valley, once a place of life and activity, was transformed into a landscape of silence, ash, and sand. But even in that silence, the spirit of Montserrat never faded. The Bellam Bridge has held a special place in the heart of Montserrat for decades. It stood as a vital link between communities, connecting people from Cork Hill to Old Town, Salem, Alsby Hill, Fritz, and beyond. It carried our people, our produce, and our memories, our dreams across the beautiful Bellam Valley. The bridge beneath the ash remained unseen but unbroken, waiting patiently, just like our people, for the moment when it could once again be revealed, renewed, and restored to its rightful place in history. Madam Speaker, that moment has come. I believe that the unearthing of the Bellam Bridge is more than an engineering milestone. It is a symbol of our resilience as a people. It is a reminder that even when the storms and ashes of life cover what we have built, our foundations, our faith, our courage, and our unity, Madam Speaker, remains strong. Madam Speaker, there's a saying that when life throws lemons at you, take them and make lemonade. This bridge, Madam Speaker, represents a connection, the connection between our past and our present, the connection between communities that have been separated for too long, connections between generations, those who remember the Bellum as it once was, and those who will now see it come alive again. Madam Speaker, the Bellum Bridge reemergence is not just about looking back. It is also about looking forward. It reminds us that recovery is not just a single act, but a journey. One that requires vision, persistence, and faith. Each project we undertake, Madam Speaker, each road repaired, each bridge restored, each home rebuilt, adds to the foundation of a stronger, safer, and more self-reliant Montserrat. Madam Speaker, one may ask, what is it costing the government of Montserrat to date? Madam Speaker, unearthing the bridge has cost the government of Montserrat $0. It is the intention to reinstate the old Islesby Hill Road leading from the bridge area. I must say thanks to the survey team. Madam Speaker, BILT technical team will then lead an evaluation of the bridge in its entirety. Madam Speaker, I would like to take this moment to acknowledge the people who make this work in government possible. To my constituents, thank you for your trust, your advice, and at times your constructive criticism. It keeps me grounded and focused on the issues that truly matter. To my parliamentary colleagues, thank you for your cooperation, your debate, and your dedication to public service. To the hard-working civil servants and staff of this House, thank you for ensuring that the business of government continues smoothly and the efforts do not go unnoticed. Madam Speaker, serving in this Parliament is not about personal recognition or political gain. It is about purpose. The purpose of improving lives and livelihood, creating opportunity, and leaving this island we call Montserrat better than how we found it. Madam Speaker, every decision here carries the weight of that responsibility. And as I enter my second year, I reaffirm my commitment to approach that responsibility with integrity, humility, and determination. Madam Speaker, the first year is not merely a moment to look back. It is a time to look ahead. Montserrat stands at a crossroad, one that offers both challenges and promise. If we continue to work together to build consensus, to keep the interest of our people at the heart of our actions, Madam Speaker, I am confident that we can achieve a future of growth, stability, and pride. In closing, I wish once more to express my sincere gratitude to the people of Montserrat for the privilege of serving you. May we continue to work hard. May we continue to work hand in hand across all differences to strengthen our democracy and to build a Montserrat that is prosperous, united, and filled with the opportunity for generations to come. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Government notices, unofficial notices, questions.
Do we have questions? I recognize the Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Yes, Madam Speaker, I do have some questions for the Honorable Premier. Question 1. Will the Premier update the Honorable House on the implementation timetable of the budget speech commitment that there will be no work permits or immigration time limits for CARICOM nationals after 3 years in Montserrat, including the Cabinet decision, amendment to Immigration Act regulations, and the targeted commencement date?
I recognize the Honorable Premier.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I wish to inform this Honourable House that the draft Cabinet paper to address the timeline for CARICOM nationals, and really it should be CARICOM and other nationals, after 3 years, has been prepared and is being further advanced. This government is mindful that this was a commitment that was ventilated during the presentation of the 2025-2026 budget speech, and is keen on taking the necessary steps to bring it to fruition. Madam Speaker, at this juncture, it would be premature to proffer a definite commencement date. Nonetheless, the government is keen on having the policy implemented no later than Q4, that is January to March of 2026. The honourable member, as a former Minister for Labour, I suspect is intimately aware of the collaborative relationship between the Immigration and Labour departments. However, for public elucidation, the Immigration Department vets applications for work permits. Though the relationship is one of collaboration, the Immigration Department does not dictate to the Labour Department on the determination of eligibility, which is set solely by the Labour Department.
Recognize the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
B of the said question, whether there has been a draft operational guidance to be provided to the Immigration and Labour departments to affect the policy for this its intent.
I recognize the Honourable Premier.
Madam Speaker, the guidance for operationalizing the intent has been set out in the Cabinet paper.
Recognize the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Question number 2. With none of the 3 ferry tenders submitted being accepted by the Procurement Board, A, state the reason why none of the tenders were accepted by the Procurement Board. I'll leave B or afterwards.
Recognize the Honourable Leader of the Honourable Premier, sorry.
Madam Speaker, based on the correspondence received from the Public Procurement Board, all bids received for the provision of this service were unsuccessful based on the technical requirements as contained in the published invitation to tender.
Recognize the Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
B. Would the Honorable Premier advise on the legality of the Premier advising the Procurement Board to negotiate with the closest tenderer with the aim to meet the missing requirements after none of the tenders were accepted by the said Procurement Board?
I recognize the Honorable Premier.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'm very pleased to learn that the Honourable Member listens to What's on Your Mind program. I can assure the Honourable Member that I can neither advise nor instruct the Procurement Board, either as a private citizen and worse, as Premier and Minister for Finance, since there are no provisions in the legislation to allow me such latitude.
I recognize the Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm not only pleased but proud of the Premier to give such clarification. C of the said question. How assured is the Premier that the public will in fact see the commencement of suitable ferry service by December 1st, 2025?
I recognize the Honorable Premier.
Madam Speaker, the absolute assurance can only be given upon the successful execution of the contract. However, at this juncture, all parties are working diligently to meet the proposed timeline.
I recognize the Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Supplementary, with your permission, Madam Speaker.
Go ahead.
Honourable Premier, can you just explain for me whether or not this timeline, the process leading up to this timeline, has to do with the procurement being retendered, a retendered process, or is it continued in some form or fashion?
I recognize the Honorable Premier.
Madam Speaker, I have been informed that the team are working with the Public Procurement Board, and I await the response from them. Once I have that response, I will make it public.
I recognize the Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Honourable Premier, on that answer. Question 3, and move on to question 3. Honourable Premier, given CARICOM's continued advocacy for the reparatory justice through its 10-point plan, can you indicate whether the Government of Montserrat has formally established a national reparatory committee in alignment with the other CARICOM member states? Or if not, could you outline the Government of Montserrat's current position and the level of commitment to the regional reparations agenda?
I recognize the Honorable Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the simple answer to that is no. Montserrat has not formally established a national reparatory committee. It should also be noted that not all CARICOM member states have established national reparatory committees. CARICOM established a reparations commission in 2013 as mandated by the 34th meeting of the heads of government in 2013, and the 10-point plan was developed in 2014. Subsequently, a prime ministerial subcommittee on reparations was established to oversee the work of the Reparations Commission and progress discussions with the European Union and the United Nations to achieve a path to reconciliation and justice. Since its establishment in 2013, the Reparations Committee has built partnerships and alliances with civil societies and organizations globally to increase advocacy and awareness on the campaign towards receiving reparatory justice. However, we must consider that despite the strategic global alliances formed and increased awareness and advocacy, the notable achievements thus far are the introduction of new knowledge on the linkages of intergenerational trauma and illnesses due to slavery, the discovery that the abolition loan taken by the British Parliament to end slavery in its colonies was only paid off in 2015. However, an apology from the government of the Netherlands in 2022 and an apology signed by 104 of the descendants of the part owners of 6 plantations in Grenada, and with the initial disbursement of £100,000. Further commitments towards bursaries and pledges of assistance to ongoing projects in Grenada have also been made. At the 47th Conference of the Heads of Government, which took place in July of 2024, CARICOM leaders pledged their support to the United Nations Permanent Forum on People of African Descent. The conference also saw further agreement to increase coordination between the UN Permanent Forum on People of African Descent, the CARICOM Secretariat, the CARICOM Reparations Commission, the CARICOM Committee of Ambassadors, the permanent representatives to the United Nations in New York and Geneva, and the organs of the community, including the Council for Foreign and Community Relations and the Council for Human and Social Development, towards advancing a comprehensive program of joint advocacy for maximum impact. The government of Montserrat remains committed to support CARICOM, the Secretariat and its organs in its continued advocacy for reparatory justice.
I recognize the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Supplementary. Honourable Premier, is there any concerns that has delayed the island of Montserrat from setting up a reparatory committee? Is there any particular concerns?
I recognize the Honourable Premier.
Madam Speaker, the answer to that is no.
Recognize the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honourable Premier, in light of the increasing frequency and impact of natural disasters across the region, can you inform this Honourable House whether the government of Montserrat has established or intend to establish a dedicated disaster relief and recovery fund to assist residents affected by those events? B, outline what steps are being taken to ensure Montserrat has greater access to regional and international climate adaptation and resilience financing mechanism to strengthen our preparedness and response capacity.
I recognize the Honourable Premier.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. The answer to A is that Montserrat, for the past several years, has purchased the tropical cyclone parametric insurance product from the Caribbean Catastrophic Risk Insurance Facility, which promises to provide quick payouts within 14 days of a triggering event. In the last year, Government of Montserrat has expanded the products purchased from that facility to add protection for excessive rainfall, in addition to the coverage provided for tropical cyclones. These funds will be within the remit of the government to utilize in post-disaster recovery. In addition, there are mechanisms within the government and legislation that allows for the reprioritization of resources in event of a disaster or emergency. There is currently no need to establish a dedicated fund in a time where resources must be allocated to ensure the many critical needs are met and effective service delivery across government is ensured. In response to B of that question, Madam Speaker, Montserrat has participated in several regional events focused on climate financing and will continue to actively participate in any further training, offering, funding, etc., that is offered regionally through our partner institutions. Due to Montserrat's status, most international financing options are not available to us, but we fully participate in any international funding training that is made available to us through CARICOM, OECS, CARTAC, CDB, ECCB, and any other of our regional partners. It should also be noted, Madam Speaker, that while grants geared towards climate adaptation exist, most of the financing mechanisms offered are geared towards debt, such as the contingent credit lines, catastrophic bonds, which is the CAT bonds, catastrophic deferred drawdown option, are heavily conditional and preferably rate-dated debt. But debt nonetheless, Madam Speaker, which is not an option that Montserrat is currently pursuing. It should be noted, Madam Speaker, that our green energy transition project that is currently being implemented is a further step in this government's pursuit of climate-resilient infrastructure. This project is completely grant-funded through the UK and is a result of the efforts of this government to ensure, as we rebuild our infrastructure, it is both climate resilient and sustainable. Furthermore, Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Finance, working with CARTAC, has sought to incorporate climate-based budgeting in the budgeting process. This will not only help in recording what aspects of the budget is focused on climate change, but will assist in the seeking of additional climate change-based funding. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Recognize the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. One supplementary. Honourable Premier, as it was in terms of the dedicated fund, as I would realize in the supplementary to come, that funds had to be taken from other areas of the budget or the departments in order to deal with immediate needs, as we were heavily affected by the floods the other day. I'm also aware that the CRIF has predetermined factors, so if you have a flood or you have a storm and it doesn't reach certain levels, we may not get a payout. So it's important that we are in a position to have such a fund so we don't have to deplete the other ministries. So my supplementary is whether or not the government is prepared to consider something like that going forward.
I recognize the Honourable Premier.
Madam Speaker, as stated in my response, and most of the resources would come from BUILT in terms of drainage works. We do mitigation work. As you recognize, we clear the drains, we clear the bridges and so forth prior to the advent of a storm. The catastrophic risk insurance is one which we will continue to support. because that deals with a payout, again, depending on the level of damage. Given our fiscal space, it is rather difficult for us, with all of the challenges which we have, to set a predetermined figure for a risk, which we're not too sure will happen when it will happen. However, in the supplementary appropriation bill, which is before this Honourable House, I am very hopeful and thankful that you will support the reallocation of additional funds to the Ministry of Build to recover the funds which were taken from them or which they had spent during the tropical cyclones which we've had.
I recognize the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you to the Honourable Premier for answering the questions presented. Madam Speaker, I do have a question. Questions for the Honourable Minister of Agriculture, Lands, Housing, Environment, Youth Affairs and Sports.
The Minister is not at his seat yet. You may go ahead.
Yeah, question 1. With the extended delays and continuous remedial works on the Drummond's housing project, will the Honourable Minister state, A, the total contract awarded to date and the cumulative disbursement for the Drummond's House project, B, what are the mobilization, site, infrastructure, and superstructure start and finish dates for this project? C, given public reports of sites preparation in mid-October and tender notices in early October, please reconcile the procurement timelines and state whether the project is on schedule.
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the question is a bit unclear, especially that the Honourable Member mentioned remedial works and that the project consists of several components. Madam Speaker, these components include preliminaries, site clearance, earthworks, road and drains, sewage and installation of water and electricity, all with different timelines, a total of approximately $587,727 currently have been spent, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the timeline that had a delay was for the construction of the apartment building. The invitation to tender for that apartment building was issued on Monday, October 6th. The closing date for submissions of the tender was Wednesday, November 5th, and the tenders are currently being evaluated. Hopefully, the evaluation process should be finished today, but until the evaluation process is completed, any pronouncements at this time, Madam Speaker, will be premature. And Madam Speaker, if the Honourable Opposition Leader so obliges in his supplementary, I will actually give a breakdown of the different components in terms of pricing.
You're asking him for a supplementary? I recognize the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would never reject such an opportunity, Madam Speaker. So, with your permission, a supplementary, Madam Speaker, if the Minister will be so kind to provide such a breakdown.
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Sorry, Madam Speaker, we just wanted to be quite open with the public. Madam Speaker, the preliminaries costed us about $75,000. Site clearance so far, just under $10,000. Surveys, just under $2,000. General earthworks, Madam Speaker, $311,000. And I must say that figure is big because it took us 90-something days worth of earthworks, Madam Speaker. Roads and drains currently, $55,700. Installation of sewage, Madam Speaker, 76,000. Installation of water, 16,000. And installation of electricity, 41,000, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Yes, Madam Speaker, thanks to you and thanks to the Minister for answering the question. I do have a question for the Honourable Minister of Education, Health, Social Services. Question: with the current influence of AI and the frequency of digital technologies being rolled out globally, A, will the Minister state for the academic year 2025-26 if there is an approved and filled post of IT/ICT teacher in each public primary school, and if not, can you advise on the recruitment status or the intent thereof?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Education and Health.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank Honourable Lewis for this question that's so relevant to digitalization of education. The answer is there are no approved or filled ICT teaching posts in any of the government-operated primary schools for the academic year 2025-2026. Presently, teachers continue to integrate ICT and AI in the delivery of their lessons. Computer awareness and digital literacy sessions are being maintained through shared teaching arrangements and by visiting ICT facilitators. The Ministry is formulating ICT learning targets within the curriculum framework. As Minister of Education, I am very aware of the need for a dedicated ICT teacher within the primary schools. The St. Augustine Primary School presently has the advantage of having one, and I truly look forward to the day when it is possible for us to have an ICT teacher in our public primary schools, but I cannot tell you of a definite funding arrangement for this or HR agreement for this.
I recognize the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
B, out said question. Can the Honourable Minister advise if the Ministry's ICT policy aligns with the National ICT Policy Plan, and does it provide for classroom devices, curriculum coverage, teacher training, and certification?
Recognize the Honourable Minister of Education.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We think it mostly does. The Ministry's ICT and education policy, which is still having some final adjustments made to it, is aligned with Montserrat's National ICT Policy and Digital Transformation Plan. This ensures that education technology goals remain consistent with the wider national strategy. The Ministry's present ICT policy provides for the integration of classroom devices at all grade levels, curriculum coverage through structured digital literacy components, ongoing teacher training and ICT certification, continued technical support through partnerships. The implementation of these and future ones is essential if we are going to move forward with the world view on digitalization of education, which improves access to information, breaks down SEN and language barriers, and helps with the workload of teachers.
I recognize the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. If there is no ICT policy within the Ministry, what is the reasonable timeline to deliver a timetabled IT/ICT program in both primary schools, and referring to both public primary schools?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Health and Education.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So we expect the Ministry's ICT policy to be presented to Cabinet within the next 3 months. And as said previously, some of the things we're trying to do, we're already rolling out. There are many things that are going to be dependent on funding.
Is that it? I recognize the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Minister. Madam Speaker, I do have questions for the Honourable Minister of Built, Utilities, Infrastructure, Labour and Transportation. Question 1. Following the September 1st, 2025 agreement with Meridian Construction to restart the Montserrat Port Development Project, can the Honourable Minister state A, revised scope, milestones, and completion date?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Built.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, following the restart agreement signed on 1st September 2025 with Meridian Construction Company, the Government of Montserrat continues to work with the CDB to ensure effective oversight and delivery discipline in line with best practice project management standards. The core physical scope remains unchanged, comprising construction of a 130-meter pier, a standalone mooring dolphin, and associated coastal protection and drainage works. However, project governance and implementation arrangements have been enhanced through the establishment of a multi-agency port task force operating under the Strategic Project Portfolio Board to ensure effective monitoring and accountability, as well as monitoring by the CPREG Steering Committee. Key construction milestones based on the contractor's revised schedule, which is still under review from the engineer Stantec, includes installation of a ro-ro ramp, 27 April 2026, leeward coastal protection, 27 January 2026, seaward coastal protection, the 8th of January 2026, balance of caissons, 16th of June 2026, completion of port pier, 14th of September 2026, construction of mooring dolphin, 3rd of September 2026, completion of causeway, 19th of May 2026, drainage causeways, 21st of April 2026, drainage ro-ro ramp, 31st of March 2026, drainage pier, 28th of August 2026, lighting causeway, 4th of March 2026, lighting of ro-ro ramp, 5th of March 2026, lighting of pier, 27th of September 2026, water causeway, 20th of April 2026, water ro-ro ramp, 22nd of April 2026, and water pier, 27th of August 2026. The revised contract completion date is September 2026, with implementation schedule adjusted accordingly to maintain compliance with the UKC funding timeline, which closes on 31st of March 2026.
Recognize the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
B, certified payments to date and remaining contract value.
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Built.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Certified payments to date and remaining contract value. As of this report, certified payments totals $65,385,258, inclusive of a remobilization advance of $2 million, which is to be repaid. The current contract value stands at $107,332,764.97, leaving a balance of $41,947,506.97.
I recognize the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
C, funding profile by source.
I recognize the Honorable Minister of Build. Your mic, please.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Funding profile by source. The project is jointly funded by the United Kingdom Caribbean Infrastructure Fund, UK CIF, and the Government of Montserrat through European Union counterpart resources, with the CDB serving as the implementation agency. UK CIF funding, £33,383,000, Government of Montserrat and the EU, £7,579,000.
Recognize the Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
D, additional oversight measures.
I recognize the Honorable Minister of Build.
A designated joint account has been established requiring dual authorization for all withdrawals, one signatory from the contractor and one from the employer, being the Government of Montserrat. Disbursements requests must include detailed expenditure plans supporting invoicement and disbursement timelines. Evidence of expenditure, including receipts, salary, disbursement records, and bank statements, must be submitted within 14 days of each withdrawal. Non-compliance triggers suspension of further withdrawals until full documentation is received. These measures reinforce fiscal discipline and transparency in project execution.
I recognize the Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Given the shortcomings of the previous contract, what steps were taken to improve and strengthen the recent contract?
I recognize the Honorable Minister of Build.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. In response to earlier lessons learned, the government has introduced several enhancement measures. Appointment of a project coordinator with extensive marine construction experience, more than 10 years of experience on marine onshore and offshore construction, and more than 25 years of experience as project and program director. We also have enhanced scrutiny by the consultant engineer, which is Santec, revised quality control and implementation schedules to be strictly monitored, verification of equipment adequacy to ensure that the contractor's machinery and resources remain consistent with delivery obligation.
I recognize the Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
One supplementary, Madam Speaker. If you go back to your answers in C, or in A, sorry, not C, but A, you would have said the revised contract completion date is September 2026, with the implementation schedule adjusted accordingly to maintain compliance, repeat, compliance with the UK CAF funding timeline, which closes on 31st March 2026. Thus, my supplementary to you is, given in the past we've heard of deadline dates that have not been met, I hope this is not the case, but if this March 31st, 2026 deadline is not met, does that mean that what balance UK CIF funding is left on the project, that Montserrat will lose it?
I recognize the Honorable Minister of Build.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The monies would not be lost. The monies would move over to continue into September 2026. That has been agreed with the United Kingdom government. September. We restarted in September, and so the year would run to September 2026, which is next year. We started this September. We restarted the contract this September. But the UK CIF monies have been approved to go. It's all a part of the pot. Yes, thank you.
I recognize the Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Question 2. With the constant deterioration of roads from north to south of the island, will the Honourable Minister A, provide a work schedule Q3 and Q4 of 2025-26 fiscal year for pothole patching and resurfacing with location, contract amounts and expected completion?
I recognize the Honorable Minister of Build.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the Ministry continues its comprehensive and road maintenance and resurfacing program across the island to address the continued deterioration of key corridors from north to south. For Q3 and 4 of the 2025-2026 fiscal year, the primary areas of focus include A1 Main Road Corridor, road patching from Little Bay to St. John's, Salem Olveston Fritz Corridor, drainage upgrades and road patching, Palm Loop and Mungo Hill, culvert, retaining wall and road construction works, St. Peter's One-Way Road and Amos Gut, drainage and flood mitigation improvements, Garland Road Link, that's the Cultural Center to Davy Hill, road pavement, drainage and sidewalks, Joan Hill Road, surfacing works currently underway and scheduled for completion on Wednesday. Limekiln Road. Upon completion of these activities, works will move to the Islesby area to address critical patching and resurfacing needs. This will be followed by pothole repairs along the A1 corridor from St. John's to Salem, extending into mid-December, when attention will shift to patching within the Little Bay area. Procurements estimated at approximately 800,000 EC dollars are underway to support these works, with completion targeted for March 2026. The work schedule has been designed to ensure that the asphalt plant operates on a continuous cycle, therefore maintaining optimal production temperatures and minimizing the mechanical stress associated with frequent shutdowns and reheating, while full resurfacing remains contingent on available funds and manpower. The Ministry will continue to prioritize maintenance along the A1 New Windward Road and within communities including Islesby, Baker Hill, Fritz, Salem, and Jones Hill. Operational teams will resume road repair works immediately along the identified priority routes.
I recognize the Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Has the Ministry...
Deputy Premier, could you please, Honorable Minister, yeah.
Has the Ministry assessed the economic impact of poor road surfaces as commuters, on the commuters?
I recognize the Honorable Minister of Build. Could you please your mic? Your mic, please.
No formal economic impact study has been undertaken to date, as the Ministry's resources have been focused on essential maintenance and resilience works. However, the Ministry recognizes that deteriorating road surfaces contribute to increased vehicle maintenance and operating costs. This practical insight informs BUILD's prioritization of high-risk and high-traffic corridors within its maintenance and rehabilitation program.
I recognize the Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Will Cabinet consider a targeted duty concession scheme on suspension parts for vehicles to alleviate cost impact on vehicle owners given the poor state of roads?
Recognize the Honorable Minister of Build.
The question of introducing duty concession on suspension paths for vehicle owners falls within Cabinet's wider fiscal policy remit. The Ministry stands ready to provide technical advice and supporting data should Cabinet decide to review this measure in the context of road maintenance impacts for this fiscal year.
Your mic, please, Honorable Minister. I recognize the Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Yes, Madam Speaker, one supplementary.
Yes.
Minister, given your comprehensive schedule layout for patching, does that now mean that the hot mix plant is back up and running?
Recognize the Honorable Minister of Build.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I know the Honorable Leader of the Opposition is praying with me that it continues to work. I have been assured that it is, yes, he prays. I have been assured that it is now working, and as I have indicated in my statement, we've put in place a relationship to help support us with that.
Minister,
I recognize the Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Minister, I can assure you as part of the 1 Montserrat, I'll get the Premier to permit me on that one. And I'll move, I'll move on to the next question. The next question is, will the Honourable Minister please state the verge cutting schedule and contract coverage for bypass A1 roads for the period quarters 3 and 4, identifying any funding or procurement gaps?
I recognize the Honorable Minister of Build.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Verge maintenance for the A1 and bypass roads is organized in quarterly cycles. 18 segments of the B and C road network will be awarded to private sector partners through a competitive quotation process, scheduled to run from November 2025 through March 2026. The current cycle covers the A1 corridor from Little Bay to Salem and the braids to St. John's Bypass, with no current funding or procurement gaps identified. Total verge maintenance and drain cleaning commitments stand at $350,000 EC, that is, complementing the wider road maintenance program.
I recognize the Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Honourable Minister, for answering the questions. And Madam Speaker, thank you for the opportunity to present the questions.
I recognize the Honorable Mulcair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My first questions will go to the Honorable Premier. My first question, can the Honorable Premier please clarify whether Montserrat's graduation from Official Development Assistance, ODA, status automatically triggers our graduation from the eligibility of programs such as the Basic Needs Trust Fund, BNTF?
I recognize the Honorable Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Montserrat's likely graduation from ODA status will restrict its access to funding designated for ODA-eligible countries. However, Montserrat remains eligible to receive support under the current BNTF program after representations by the government of Montserrat.
Recognize the Honorable Mulcair.
My next question. The government has announced the securing of a soft loan facility in the sum of $2.1 million to be allocated between the agriculture and fisheries and the small and micro enterprise sector. Can the Honorable Premier kindly inform this Honorable House, A, what is the maximum loan amount available to an individual applicant, and to a small or micro business under this program? B, what interest rates are to be applied to these loans?
I recognize the Honorable Premier.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the structure of the program is still being finalized, but it is expected that the maximum loan amount available per application will be $50,000 with a 2.5% simple interest rate. The program will provide much-needed access to financing for micro and small business sector and our hard-working farmers and fishers. The private sector is the foundation upon which we will build our way back to full self-sufficiency and economic independence, and I am proud that this is yet another initiative of this government in spearheading the support to our people.
Recognize the Honorable Malkia.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you to the Honorable Premier for his responses. I move on to the Honorable Minister of Build. My first question. On 28th July 2025, the Honorable Minister of Build advised this Honorable House that the Cabinet paper on the proposed minimum wage had been circulated, comments received, and that the submission was being finalized for Cabinet consideration. Can the Honourable Minister now update this Honourable House on the following? A, whether the Cabinet paper on the minimum wage has since been approved by Cabinet. B, if it has been approved, what is the anticipated implementation date for the new minimum wage to take effect on Montserrat? And C, the specific minimum wage rate being proposed.
I recognize the Honorable Minister of Build.
Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Labour has continued its work toward the introduction of Montserrat's first national minimum wage. Extensive consultation and technical analysis have been undertaken, drawing on cost of living data from the Statistics Department and the consensus views of the Labour Advisory Board, which we respect, which recommended the establishment of a minimum wage in the range of $12.25 to $12.50 per hour based on a standard 48-hour work week. The policy paper has been submitted for Cabinet's consideration, and following its deliberation, Cabinet will determine the specific rate and implementation timeline. The comments received recommended waiting for the results of the Household Budget Survey and Survey of Living Conditions 2025, which will provide the most current comprehensive picture yet of household income, expenditure, and living standards. These results will guide an evidence-based approach to wage setting and ensure that any adjustments is fair, sustainable, and supportive of decent work, fairness, and competitiveness within the national economy.
I recognize the Honorable Malkia.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question number 2. The International Labour Organization ILO Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities has not yet been extended to Montserrat. Can the Honourable Minister of Labour update this Honourable House on the following? A, the initiatives taken thus far to facilitate the extension of this convention to Montserrat, and B, the anticipated implementation date for the ILO Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities to be extended to Montserrat.
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Build.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The government of Montserrat remains committed to ensuring that the rights and opportunities of persons with disabilities are safeguarded in accordance with international human rights and labour standards. Work towards the development of a national disability policy commenced as early as 2015 and was further advanced in 2021 to strengthen the framework of promoting inclusion, access, and protection of the rights of persons with disabilities when I sat as Parliamentary Secretary. The policy was finalized in 2022 and presented publicly in December 2024 at an open forum hosted by the Ministry of Social Services in collaboration with the Montserrat Association of Persons with Disability, the Civil Service Association, among other stakeholders who were all invited to participate. The policy outlines measures to prevent discrimination in employment, education, and access to services, and proposes institutional arrangements to coordinate disability affairs nationally. At the regional level, and international level, I may say, the matter of extending international convention to the British Overseas Territories was discussed at the ILO FCDO BOTC's Commonwealth and Development Office and British Overseas Territories meeting held on 22nd October 25. Both the ILO and the UK government recognize the need to clarify the procedural arrangements governing the participation of the territories in ILO processes, including the extension of conventions such as the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. A joint ILO-UK review is currently underway to address these procedural matters. Accordingly, while there is no fixed date for the formal extension at this time, Montserrat domestic framework anchored in the National Disability Policy places the island in a strong position to proceed once the procedural and legislative arrangements between the ILO and the UK government are fully clarified. I will support the advancement of this policy.
I recognize the Honorable Mulcair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the Honorable Minister of Build for her responses. I now move on to the Honorable Minister of Agriculture, Lands, Housing, Environment and Sports. My first question: can the Honorable Minister of Housing state whether any housing solutions currently exist, are active, and have funding to assist young persons who wish to build or purchase their own home? And if no such solutions are in place, active, or have funding, when does the government anticipate introducing funding any such solutions?
I recognize the Honorable Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the government of Montserrat's policy agenda includes the following objectives. 1, improved access to affordable housing for low and middle income residents. And 2, increased social housing stock supported by an equitable allocation policy. Based on this agenda, the government of Montserrat has sought innovative ways to provide housing solutions for all eligible persons on Montserrat, to include young persons. Over the years, young persons have benefited from the initiatives that were rolled out. The government of Montserrat also continues to ensure that the policy agenda outlined above is met through the following. 1, the financial assistance program. This one such initiative is in the form of materials grants and financial assistance grants to secure home mortgages and improve their housing condition. Provision of service lots. And here, Madam Speaker, the government has made service lots available to individuals, and these lots have been used also as collateral for mortgages. In some instances, and several homes have also been constructed by individuals who would have benefited from the provision of service lots. There are also some lots still available, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the Honorable Mulcair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question 2 to the Honorable Minister. Can the Honorable Minister of Lands and Housing advise this Honorable House on the availability of Crown lands for affordable housing developments and whether priority will be given to young persons and single-parent households?
I recognize the Honorable Minister of Agriculture.
Madam Speaker, the government of Montserrat has recognized the importance of the availability and provision of land for development purposes, and more so, housing development. Madam Speaker, the Ministry has taken the initiative to ensure that lands for potential development is identified or are identified. This exercise has been carried out by the Lands and Survey Department in conjunction with the Montserrat Land Development Authority and the Physical Planning Unit. There are pockets of land which are government-owned, and these sites are being mapped and quantified. Additionally, these sites are being assessed in terms of potential for housing subdivision development and the carrying capacity of such sites. Recently, preliminary work has been undertaken on the development of an access road from Lookout to Drummonds. This development, which is in its early stages, has opened access to lands in the area, which can be utilized for housing development. The intention is to make service lots available to individuals, which would include young persons and single-parent households once the criteria is satisfied. Residential service lots are targeted at landless persons who demonstrate the ability to secure the funds needed to build dwelling houses within a maximum period of 12 months. The beneficiary will be required to raise the funds necessary to construct a dwelling house.
I recognize the Honorable Malkia.
My third question relates to the Darwin Biodiversity Funding Review. Will the Honorable Minister please state, A, whether the Government of Montserrat provided an official position or submission to the external review of Darwin funding held on 15 to 17 September 2025. B, what the government's top priorities will be in the next round of Darwin funding and how these priorities align with Montserrat's biodiversity and conservation goals. And C, how local non-governmental organizations and community stakeholders will be actively engaged in shaping and implementing projects funded through the Darwin Initiative.
I recognize the Honorable Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, representatives from the Ministry of Agriculture, Lands, Housing and the Environment, and also Youth and Sports, and the Department of Environment met with consultants between 15th to the 17th of September 2025 to assist in the review of 3 Darwin-funded projects on Montserrat. Representatives responded candidly, knowledgeably, and articulately to the specific questions posed. The Government of Montserrat, in writing project proposals for the next Darwin call, will emphasize invasive species control and habitat assessment and restoration. These priorities are in perfect alignment with the island's biodiversity and conservation goals, as represented more generally in the strategic plan for the ministry and the National Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan that is currently under development with the kind support and technical provision from the OECS. Madam Speaker, the Department of Environment strongly advocates the inclusion of community stakeholders in the development and implementation of biodiversity-related projects. It believes that education and empowerment are critical tools in generating compliance with environmental best practice and appreciation of the island's unique but internationally renowned biodiversity pool. Notwithstanding this, the department will continue to emphasize and/or amplify the following: stakeholder mapping to identify and prioritize stakeholders based on influence and interest, provision of advice to persons interested in pursuing Darwin applications, assisting with the review of project proposal, maintenance of open channel of communication through meetings, updates, etc., inclusive decision-making, working with communities through community action groups to identify community needs and priorities, execution of community educational outreach activities in collaboration with the communities, monitoring and evaluation of projects on the implementation, especially those supported by the Department of Environment, establishment of channels of feedback and concerns, and the identification of and collaboration with stakeholders on long-term sustainable strategies.
I recognize the Honorable Malkia.
Thank you, Madam Minister. Thank you, Madam Speaker. My fourth question, can the Honourable Minister please outline A, the programming plan for the newly renovated Salem Community Centre for the financial year 2025-2026, B, the management model that will govern its operations, and C, how the centre is expected to support the development of cultural industries as well as youth and broader community programming to ensure it serves as a vibrant hub for Montserrat's cultural and social development.
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The handover or opening ceremony for the Salem Community Resource Centre took place on June 25th of this year. There is a 9-member executive committee in place. Madam Speaker, may I emphasize that this executive committee holds the responsibility for planning and executing programs at the Salem Community Resource Centre. Further, Madam Speaker, the management model that will govern the operations of the centre will be determined by the executive committee of the Salem Community Centre Group in consultation with the relevant stakeholders, including the Department of Community, Youth and Sport Services. As mentioned previously, the executive committee of the Salem Community Development Group holds the responsibility for program planning. Similarly to the other functioning community groups on island, collaboration is envisaged with the government of Montserrat and other NGOs to offer varied activities which align to Montserrat's cultural and social development needs.
I recognize the Honourable Malkia.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and that comes to the end of my line of questioning today.
I recognize the Honourable Romeo. Sorry, I recognize the Honourable Premier.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to move a motion for the adjournment of this Honourable House for an hour and 15 minutes so that some of us can revive ourselves with some sustenance. And may I suggest that we return at 2:30? Would that be acceptable to all?
I recognize the Honourable Deputy Premier.
Madam Speaker, I stand to support the adjournment requested by yourself.
It has been moved and seconded that this Honourable House adjourn for lunch to return at 2:30. All those in favour, say aye. All those against, nay. The ayes have it. This Honourable House now stands adjourned until 2:30.